Okay, good evening. Welcome to the April 20th Planning Commission meeting. As a courtesy, you are able to join virtually. The instructions for joining are on the first page of the agenda, but if you're hearing this, you are already joined virtually. But in the future, they're on page 1 of the agenda. We'll start tonight with a roll call. Commissioner Lavange.
Present.
Commissioner DeGiorgio.
Present.
Commissioner Mason.
Present.
And I'm here, Commissioner Radnich. Can I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comments, item 4 on tonight's agenda. So this is an opportunity if you would like to provide comment for an item not on the agenda. If you are waiting to speak for an agenda item, that'll come later per each item. So any comments? So I see none in the room. How about virtually?
And I fear that I have been dropped off of the meeting, and so we'll ask the AV Tech in the AV room if there are any hands raised for public comments, and I'll rejoin the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, no hands raised, so no public comments virtually. We'll move to item 5, consent calendar. It's for 2 sets of meeting notes, March 2nd and March 16th. Can I get a motion?
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 6, presentation by staff for the capital improvement program update and proposed projects.
So good evening, Planning Commission. Mike Moran here representing Engineering and Public Works, and this is my annual opportunity to share with you the capital improvement program that's been happening and that's proposed for the future. The proposed projects I'm presenting tonight have been vetted through our Capital Projects Assessment Committee. They're to you tonight to see that they comply with or are in conformance with the general plan. And if that all works out, then they will go to the council in May to request funding, which would be adopted in June with the budget. So that's kind of the annual cycle. So I have several projects. I have some slides to share and I will go through them fairly quickly. Of course, you're welcome to ask questions as we go or at the end, but most of them just follow the staff report that I've given you. So there's kind of a representation of what we've done. So I'll start with what we've completed. We did a large paving project last year, St. Mary's Road and Mount Diablo Boulevard. So here's a photo at St. Mary's out near the community center. Another location back at the beginning of that at Glenside Drive. So we paved between Glenside and Roar last year. We also were out on Mount Diablo Boulevard. So this is sort of near the reservoir on the west end of town. And another shot there at the freeway on-ramps and off-ramps at Acalanes at the very west end of town. So that was our major paving project last year. We also did a pathway project on Pleasant Hill Road near Spring Hill School. This was a really nice opportunity. We got some grant funding. We partnered with East Bay Regional Park District. As you may know, they have a parking lot and access to their trails right adjacent to Spring Hill School. So this works as sort of an informal drop-off pickup area, and this gives them a protected pathway to school. It also eliminates an issue we've had with people parking in the shoulder along Pleasant Hill Road for decades, but it's been a little chaotic, and there's always been some concern with some safety issues there. So we were able to complete that. There's another shot of the pathway there. Wasn't sure when we were going to do this, but last year we did have a project at the police station. It was up on the roof. We needed to do the new roof and HVAC repairs. We did know years ago that that was failing and leaking, and we were patching it, and we got to a point where we needed to get that fixed. So we worked that into last year's program. So those are the capital projects we completed. We also have quite a few ongoing projects. We are working on a bridge maintenance design. We've got 4 or 5 different bridges we're working on. Here's one of Moraga Boulevard that's near Lee Creek side at 3rd Street, but we've also got some other bridges listed there. It varies from scouring at the foundation to resurfacing the deck to repairing sidewalk and railing, including on El Cortella Boulevard, which is our famous or infamous bridge that everybody sees on Highway 24, because that's the bridge everybody likes to share information from. So anyway, those are all part of a bridge program. We're in design and they're doing studies on those. I did learn that some of the repairs we're going to need to do are fairly expensive, and we don't have funding set aside for that. So I have applied for the Highway Bridge Program. It's a long process, but if accepted, we will get some federal funding to help us with that maintenance. So another project that we've been working on really for a couple of years, because this is in conjunction with the county, with La Miranda, Lafayette, Moraga, and Orinda, and Contra Costa Transportation Authority, is a smart signals project. This is an opportunity to use some grant funding to upgrade our traffic signals throughout all of Lafayette. We'll have some interconnection. We will have some adaptive capabilities with the smart signals. It's not going to eliminate traffic at peak times, but it will flow better at non-peak times, and you might find some improvement at peak times, but it doesn't fix traffic. Particularly, for example, this location, Moraga and Mount Diablo Boulevard, when school lets out. Another tough location and intersection is Deer Hill Road at Pleasant Hill Road at school times or peak commute times. So it's going to help, but another advantage of the Smart Signal project is we will have backup batteries at most of our signals, and that's going to be very helpful, particularly if there's power safety shutoffs and so forth. So that is should be out to bid this June. It's probably an 18-month project, in part because of how long these components take to order, but we should be starting that this summer. I've been working on a St. Mary's Road repair for 3 years. This happened December 31st of 22. And because this is funded by the Federal Highway Administration, the environmental goes through Caltrans to do the NEPA. I am still working on that approval process. We had a similar project that didn't go through this NEPA process. And
would you define NEPA?
Oh, sorry. National Environmental Protection. It's California's CEQA, the California. So this is the environmental, and obviously it's at a creek. So there's some sensitive areas there, but there's also archaeological and historical and all those things that they're requiring that we clear, which has been a long process. I did get an extension for this project and had to say, hey, you haven't cleared my environmental. What do you want me to do? So we're trying. I did put about 100 tons of riprap in this 2 weeks after this slid. And that's the only reason I've been able to sleep at night since that time, because otherwise we were going to lose St. Mary's Road. You may or may not know, but we bought the Campana building a few years ago. In part, that was to help with the Plaza Overlay Parking District. We were hoping to also get another building so that we could change the configuration of circulation through that building. That didn't happen. A lot of back and forth and some planning, and what we've decided to do is put it back on the market, but have a condition of approval, well, a couple conditions of approval from the buyer. And that is, one, there would be a creek access easement that would run through this property to the creek behind it, which is basically the channeled culvert from the flood control district. and open concrete channel from the flood control district, but it would access the creek. And then also the property, the purchaser is interested in maybe some reciprocal parking, which was the intent of buying this between the Park Theater and this building. Should we be able to get that creek access and either a bridge or another easement through another property that would be between the theater and the Campana. So that is on the market. There's proposed agreements going back and forth, and I don't know exactly where that's at, but that's the intent, is to sell it, but still try and get some of the initial intent out of it by some parking cooperation. Yes.
So right now that's in negotiation.
Yes.
Is there, I know in like the Park Theater, there was someone off Planning Commission who was asked to be on. Do we on just regular acquisitions invite anyone from Planning Commission, or is it just city, like is it who's on it from the city?
So, I mean, the real estate components of this are usually closed session with the city council
Okay.
and city attorney. So it's,
Okay, so maybe the Park Theater was a special one where they wanted to invite, I just was curious if they don't normally ask someone from the Planning Commission, I don't think. I just hope
that's
to
not
have
my
someone that
understanding.
has real estate experience.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's going to be yes. I know the city does. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll stop.
It's just all about trying to get the connectivity
Yeah.
and,
No,
and
I
shared use.
understand what
Yeah,
we're trying to
right.
do. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure.
As far as the legal, when I was going to either build something there or demolish something there, that's my job. But as far as the sales and so forth, I weigh in to help them get easements and things like that. But I haven't been privy to the conversations.
And then the property in between is the one that we would like to in the future get a cross access, hopefully between here and the Park Theater.
Either that, or if we're on the south side of that creek channel, a bridge over it.
To go around them?
Yes, because this property actually has and I don't have it, sorry, but it actually goes back and kind of pies back on that south side of the creek. So it goes farther back than, say, the white car there that you can see parked at the back. And that's where the creek is. So it goes farther back, and you could get a bridge over from that too. So you'd have a walking path that kind of crosses over the creek and then back through these two properties.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
That would be a hope. So it's one of two options.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. We have been working on a BART bike station and pathway for many years because this has been joint with BART, and it has also included a change of funding during COVID. Happy to say that we have finally broken ground. You can see some demolition there where the bike station pad would be, and this is going to connect town center downtown with the BART on the south side. It also has lighting and an art component. If you were aware of the floating dandelion art that was presented several years ago to City Council. And anyway, looking forward to actually getting this project done. I will say it's going slower than staff would like, and it's taking a lot of hand holding, and there are multiple jurisdictions, East Bay Mud Aqueduct, Caltrans, BART, and the city all have a stake in this project. So right now we have a 26 paving project out to bid. It includes 22 residential streets. We have not been focusing on residential streets for repaving. In the last several years, the residential street work we've done maintenance-wise has been more slurry seals. We have decided to go back to overlays and inlays and actually get full paving on these streets. We think it will be the best bang for the buck given the cost escalation we've seen in the slurry seals and just the longer life you get with the paving. So that project is out to bid. We open Thursday. We are a little concerned about pricing. You may know that asphalt and transportation are both dependent on oil prices and the cost of things. So we don't know what we're going to get. We're crossing our fingers for a low price, at least somewhere near the engineer's estimate. So we'll find out later this week. We are adding 2 more rapid flashing beacon crossings. This one I show at the roundabout because there's already one there. There's 2 there actually. So this is Pleasant Hill Road and then the leg going towards Greeley Station Road on the west. And if you were to go towards the east, towards Rossmore, we are planning to add one there as well. I've actually ordered those components and that one should go in pretty short order. The other location we plan to put one is Mount Temple Boulevard at Hampton. We're having to do more of a formal design for that one. It's going to have a center refuge. It's kind of there between Hampton and across the street is like the Shell station, but it serves some of the hair salons, 7-Eleven, Hank and Frank's Bicycles over there, but there's apartments across the street from those things like the 7-Eleven. It actually gets quite a bit of pedestrian traffic crossing Mount Temple Boulevard. It's very wide at that location. We've had requests to improve safety crossing there for quite a while. Hampton is located just about midway between Brown and Carroll Lane. It's about 1,100 feet from either direction, and those are your closest signals that would be protected for crossing. So we're hoping to improve safety there with a flashing beacon crossing. You may not know, but in this facility, the Seaboard Garden, we were having some issues with with what was built originally. We had some water infiltration under the floor. We weren't using this for open to the public because honestly, it had sloped floors and things like that. There were issues with ADA. I don't know all the background on why it was designed the way it was, but I know it wasn't working. We removed out what was in the center there. What you see there is just a new concrete slab to control the drainage away from the building and put it into a drainage system. There's more stories about this, but basically we're going to put back like a paved tile and hopefully some sort of art project working with the Public Art Committee on what could go there. At this point, it looks like we're going to be phasing that. I'm just going to put a deck in that, and then an art would be added to that to seam into the paved tile deck. We have a downtown striping project. Actually, I would have said going on right now, except it's raining again. We actually had planned to do this during the spring break of the schools, and it rained that week too, which was unfortunate. So the contractor is planning to work at least one night doing some of the striping, but this is an ongoing project downtown, covering Mount Temple Boulevard, Moraga Road, and like Oak Hill and First and parts of Deer Hill. So just a maintenance project, but that's one that we threw in that's out there right now on the street, and hopefully that will be done within the next few weeks. School Street Topper Lane, you may remember this. We got some grant funding to add a formal walkway on the north side of School Street there, and then it takes a bend onto Topper Lane and actually includes one block of St. Mary's Road between Topper and Birdhaven. We thought we would be building this summer. We are not, and it's for the same reason I don't have my slide repair done on St. Mary's Road. Caltrans came in and said, no, we need a more extensive NEPA or environmental process. We've basically met the steps that they've asked us for, but the process took a couple months longer, and we would have needed to have this to basically their headquarters so that they could process the final paperwork and get us a notice to proceed. And that wasn't going to happen. So we're looking at doing this summer of 2027. We have a proposed aqueduct pathway project, sort of the dashed line in the middle there. And you can see kind of the orange off to the left is solid because that portion has been completed. But this would also connect to that same south part of BART. And ideally, we would have a continuous pathway all the way to Pleasant Hill Road and beyond at some point in the future. We have funding to get from where we left off at that solid path, which those were done by developers, by the way. So the last portion ended at Lennar there, right at Dolores. We have some funding in a STIP, a state grant, to get us from Dolores to the BART station. It will require a bridge over Happy Valley Road. We're having to work with Caltrans. We're having to work with East Bay Mud Aqueduct. And we also have some potential for that section, and we have some potential funding for Brown Avenue to Pleasant Hill Road. So sort of the bookends of this, if you will, through DeSaulniers' ask in his package this year. So it'll probably be nearly another year before we find out about that funding. The first section between Dolores and Bart, we would not receive that funding for construction until 2029. So this is a few years off. We've got quite a bit of planning to do, and we got quite a bit of work to do with Caltrans and East Bay Mud. We're also hoping to connect with a flyover at Oak Hill Road to get over from Safeway. It's looking more and more like we may need to have an at-grade crossing at First Street, and we would send you up to Deer Hill at the signal. It's a little unfortunate, but it's just the topography is very tough on this. But ultimately, this could be a really great regional project that really ultimately connects to Canal Trail, Iron Horse Trail, and Walnut Creek. You know, you could go from Lafayette Reservoir to Dublin almost entirely on a connected pathway. We have had discussions with Contra Costa County and Walnut Creek as well on their side of Pleasant Hill Road. So we're looking forward to that. We're asking for grant funding for these things, and we have a couple of pieces in play. Here's what they look like already. So looking for just a class 1 pathway. These two sections that, again, that was the solid orange on the map, are maintained by the homeowners association. So another perk in those two sections. And there it is again, going towards Dolores. So we did get some earmark funding for a West Reach Creeks project. It's not a lot. We're going to do what we can. We have started design, and we have an RFP going out for the environmental work on this. This we anticipate building maybe in 2028. This is the West Reach, which is basically the section of creek across the street from the Vets building, between RISA and our city offices. So finally, here's the table that, you know, is important, particularly for the city council, because this is what I'll ultimately ask them to adopt is the top part of this, the new 27 projects there. So we've got a 27 pavement maintenance project, and the streets are listed in the addendum to this. It's 11 projects, or 11 streets, excuse me, going forward next year. Hastings Court stabilization is a residential street that's been settling for years. It's got some creep downhill that we need to stabilize. Stanley Boulevard and Quant Road. There's existing traffic calming. That's all the center. If you're on Stanley Boulevard going towards Walnut Creek, all the center traffic calming there, the medians, the bulb outs. We put that in several years ago. We need to resurface the street. We're not sure exactly if we would remove and replace in kind, if we would repair that, if we would remove and put other traffic calming back. There's going to have to be some process around that. We have some lessons learned from what we installed, and I don't know that we'll do it exactly the same going back, to be honest. So, but that's up there. On Quant, we added a pathway last year because this is kind of a back route for elementary school kids towards Spring Hill School. And we added a wider pathway, and then it ended at a narrower sidewalk. We want to widen that sidewalk, and there's a little gap in between the sidewalk and that path that we'd like to complete. So that's what the Stanley and Quant Road are. I have a cemetery storm drain. Unbeknownst to us, we have an easement through the Lafayette Cemetery. We have a storm drain that's failing, and we need to remove and replace a section. So we have that project up there. We'll work on that this year. And then the aqueduct pathway design, in addition to getting some funding for some construction, we also have a grant to help us complete a design for the entire section from Dolores to Deer Hill, or to Pleasant Hill Road, excuse me. So that's the last of those proposed for next year. Those are the new projects. I've got the carryover projects listed there, and those were also noted in my slides. Some other projects that could show up in the 5-year plan is a community center parking lot, needs some resurfacing. It would also be an opportunity site for us to add some bioretention and get some credit with our clean water program at that location. The St. Mary's Road drop off it's that St. Mary's Road at the back of Stanley Middle School. It's informally used now. We would hope to formalize that, make it a little easier for use. A lot of people coming from Burton Valley drop their kids off, then they just do a U-turn right there on St. Mary's Road. There has been some safety issues with that, and we also, if we could formalize this, perhaps could reduce the amount of traffic in front of School Street as well, and maybe give a second opportunity for people to be dropped off and picked up. Traffic signal Deer Hill at Oak Hill Road. So this is near BART. It's a always stop at this time. People have requested for years that we signalize it. It's very expensive to put a signal in. It's over $1 million, but it probably is due. So that's something we put on this 5-year plan. I just noted storm drains citywide. We are always looking as part of the paving projects to change out any failed or aging storm drain systems. That for the most part means corrugated metal pipes that have rusted out and are not as effective as they should be. So we look to remove and replace those as we move forward with just our capital program. And then I've got another park trails and recreation project to be determined. They do have a project that needs to be done at Buckeye Fields. They're stabilized their concrete deck. They are also always looking for other things. They're always looking for new opportunities. So it's almost as a placeholder, but there would likely be 1 to 2 parks, trails, and rec projects over the next 5 years. Other things that are kind of more maintenance, but also larger projects are like a pole painting project, like our signals are painted black. The decorative streetlights are black. We haven't had a repainting project in a while. I think you'll see that in the next 5 years as well. So things like that. But that's the last of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions. And again, I'm looking primarily for the 2027 projects, which is this table, to be found in conformance with the general plan.
Thank you. I have one question, then I'll open it to the other commissioners. On this slide, I thought I heard you say for the 2027 pavement project that it was 11 streets, but on your slide, I thought I saw 22.
So 22 is the 26 project that we'll pave this summer.
Oh, got it.
And 11 is next year.
Next. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Mason?
Yes, is there anything on access or parking for the Batwing property?
I would say that's probably one of those TBD under Parks, Trails, and Rec. There are discussions about it, but there's nothing funded or brought forth by PTR at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner DeGiorgio?
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Carl.
Regarding the pavement condition index,
Yes.
what, I know that you report that to the city council, but is there a goal for that, and where is that goal maintained? Is that the
Yeah.
general plan, or is that somewhere else?
No, I think the general plan might, we just say good, which numbers wise, we're trying to stay at 75. We were down at 73. We've been at 78. In December, we were at 76. And now if you look at I think I included the rating in the back of this report, it says 75. As soon as we pave in 26, especially 22 residential streets, that's going to kick it up a little bit again. But the intent, it's going to vary a little bit from year to year, but the intent is to keep it in the mid to high 70s.
Commissioner Labange?
Couple ones. Off of Moraga Boulevard, where the bridge is, right next to what you're talking about, there's that old path that connected up to Mount Diablo. What's the story with that?
So East Bay Regional Park District does have that scheduled,
Okay.
but I think they're still a couple of years out, but it is on their plan. I mean, we've been asking, You know, it took them a while to do. They had a stabilization. They had a slide there, obviously, and they closed that down. So they did what they've done there with sort of the riprap you see in the creek adjacent to the park is an interim measure. It's not their permanent restoration. So I think it's a chicken or egg thing. They have to kind of finish one before they open up to the other. So I can also tell you that our Creeks Committee is trying to piggyback on their project and allow us to like add a irrigation line under the new bridge that they plan to put in as part of that project and do some planting of some native and keep that bank, especially because it's accessible via pedestrians.
Right.
Really nice, kind of as a model project, as you will, for Creeks.
Yeah, okay. Do you get a lot of questions from like people in the community about their streets getting paved? Is that something that I'm just curious because
I would say I used to get a lot more. And to be very honest, I mean, we get this is sinking or you need to patch this or it's breaking apart right here. But not, boy, when are you going to get to my street? Because overall, most streets are in better condition. But 25 years ago, we got calls all the time.
right. I was wondering how you weighted them, but but it sounds like you're not getting harassed, but you're just weighting them by your own.
Yeah, so
judgment.
we don't necessarily weight them by just, you know, the squeaky wheel. We
Right.
have a pavement management system. It's a software. It's used Bay Area wide, not just county wide. It's kind of managed through MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Commission. It's called Street Saver, and it ranks them. And you run different scenarios, and you know, if you have $2 million to put into paving restoration, it'll tell you one scenario. And if you have $3 million, it'll tell you another. And all it's trying to do is get you the best bang for the buck and keep your pavement condition index as high as possible. So we have a little more money right now, between $3.5 and $4 million a year. We should be able to maintain 75 or higher.
But
And
somewhere for that program, you have to rate the existing, right? So they're all rated.
they're all rated, and they're all rated by consultants
Okay.
consistently that are hired not through the city. We get a grant and they look at this, they physically look at the streets about every 3 years
Okay.
and go out and actually rank it, right? And they say, yeah, it's depressed there, or it's weathered there, or it's broken there, or it's settled there. And they rank the streets, all of them. It's a tedious process. And then in between that time, it's an extrapolation that the software does.
Okay. The only thing in a perfect world for this report, I would love to have the map of the streets versus I mean, it's fine to write it out, but I don't know every street, so I'm looking it up. So but I know that's just extra overhead, and if people aren't bugging you about it, but in the future, I'd say that would be great.
That's a fair comment. And actually, we still plan to do that, and we'll actually have it on our website.
Okay.
And I'm sorry it wasn't prepared for this meeting. It wasn't for my CPAC either. I will endeavor actually to get it done before the council meeting, grouped with the same
Right.
streets. But it's a very good comment. People like to see it. It'll be color coded kind of year by year.
Right.
And-
it'd be
and
great
we'll
if some of
publish
the
it.
Other projects were too, just because it's, it's our city, right? It's the whole integrated, where all the
Yeah.
money's going.
Yeah.
But that's a bigger ask. So
Okay.
let's stick with this.
No, it's a good comment, and we'll try and get a visual out
Yeah.
there that helps.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. This is great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Were there any other questions? Okay, then I think we'll open it for public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to provide comment on the presentation? Okay, I don't see any in the room. What about online?
If anyone attending the meeting online would like to comment on this item, please use the raise hand function now. Seeing none.
Okay, and then I see one hand half going up. If you would like to speak, you can fill out a comment card and then come up to the podium.
And again, this is on the CIP.
Yeah, only for the CIP item. So, okay, seeing none. So we'll close public comment. Is there any other comments for staff, or is there a motion? So just a reminder, we're making potentially a recommendation to find the CIP to be in conformance with the general plan.
I'll make a move. I move that we find the proposed fiscal year 2027 capital improvement program described in staff report 6A to be in conformance with Lafayette's general plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those 4 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maya.
Yeah, appreciate the presentation. Thank you. Okay, item 7 was continued public hearings, and we actually have none. Item 8 is new public hearings. The first one is O'Brien Land Co. Parcel map merge of 10 existing parcels into one for previously approved entitlement. So I will look to staff to provide a presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the commission, members of the public. The matter before you is limited in scope. It is related to the Terraces of Lafayette project, which has been previously applied for, gone through many public hearings and approved by the council. Following the approval, they have been fulfilling conditions of approval and mitigation measures. They pulled a permit to do work on site, and that was completed and finalized. And they continue to get closer. There are plans, I believe, either ready to issue at the Contra Costa County Building Department or near that stage. And so as part of the project moving forward, the applicant identified that what we understood as one parcel actually is constituted by 10 individual fee simple parcels. So the project is at the southwest corner of Pleasant Hill Road and Deer Hill Road. It's slightly larger than 22 acres. And so what it has been represented for 20 plus years as a single parcel with one assessor's parcel number actually is constituted of smaller parcels which have been assembled. And it has been the practice of the commission to approve developers' projects and allow the consolidation of parcels. Most recently, 1001 Oak Hill Road assembled, I believe, 4 parcels. Similarly, the northwest corner of Second and Mount Diablo, the Guerra project, I believe that was 3 or 4 parcels. So it is commonplace to have multiple parcels consolidated as part of a project, and the O'Brien Land Company has applied to do that here. And so we are able to make the findings to approve the parcel map. And for clarity, this could not be done at a staff level through a lot line revision because it involves more than 4 parcels. So the proper instrument and mechanism would be a parcel map, which would allow for the singular parcel to result as a part of the lot merger, lot consolidation. And so that is on screen. It's part of your packet. This was previously scheduled for 2 weeks ago. We didn't have a quorum at the time. Same staff report was reissued for this evening. And additional public, so the public comments that came in previously were reproduced, and additional public comments have come in as late as today, and those have been compiled, placed on the city's website, forwarded to the commission for review. I believe they constitute about 16 pages. And so there are comments related to the prior to the project itself, which has been previously been applied for, the project being the 315 apartments in 14 buildings. That is not an issue this evening, notwithstanding any of the public comments which contend it is not. The issue before the commission this evening is the subject of merging the parcels into a single parcel. And I'm happy to take any questions from the commission.
Thank you. I appreciate the summary of the noticing and the public comments received. So as a commissioner, we did receive the public comments that were posted after publication of the staff report. We received those today. Are there any clarifying questions for staff? Commissioner DeGiorgio?
Can you explain the mechanism how the GIS maps are updated? Because when I looked it up, just looking into everything, it still shows P1, not APO. And I think that was a result of if my recollection is, that was a result of the alternatives and something like that. But I'm just curious for, if you happen to know why it wouldn't be updated.
And I will look this evening to make sure that the city's current website, both the static PDF and the dynamic GIS, reflect the current zoning, which is R65. That was put in place after the project submitted and applied for. And so the application came in when the project was zoned APO, Administrative Professional Office, and was entitled to that zoning regulations throughout the consideration and until it was acted on. During that time frame, the city rezoned it to R65, so R indicating residential, 65 indicating a minimum lot size of 65,000 square feet. To your question, as the rezoning occurs, then there are follow-on actions that require us to publish those and promulgate those in the GIS system and the PDF map online. And I believe that has happened accurately. What I've experienced on occasion is, if I'm using a search engine, is the results come up and it is a cached exhibit that was previously published, but is no longer the latest, greatest version. So I'm going to attend to that to make sure that what is currently on our website is accurate. And I don't, if I'm able to report any error to a search engine, we can attempt to do so. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
The applicant has up to 10 minutes too. So that's
Perfect. Same page. If the applicant's team is here and would like to present anything, you have 10 minutes. Up to you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the commission. I'm Brian Winter, Land Use Counsel for O'Brien Land Company. We're here to answer questions tonight. We appreciate the work that staff has put into this project, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have at this point.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant's team? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, I do, sorry.
Oh, wait, just kidding. There's one. Commissioner LaBonge.
I will say, because of work, I haven't reviewed all the letters that came in from 1 o'clock because I was working right up till I came here. So I'm trying to get through them.
Wait, sorry, can I pause you for 1 sec? Then maybe after your question, maybe we could just ask staff to please recap at a high level the comments that did come in this afternoon, the topics. Just
I can go.
queuing staff up, but first your question for.
But I have read the staff report. So I would just like to hear from your point of view how this was missed. I don't see this as a fatal flaw, but I'm also a little surprised. I'm in the industry. I deal with real estate a lot. The knowledge of parcels doesn't typically get like completely missed, but again, I personally don't see a correlation between that and whether this project is something that should go forward or not, but it still just bothers me a little. So I would like to hear from the applicant's point of view how did this get missed?
Well, sure. The context is actually simple, and it wasn't missed. The project team knew from moment one, and a preliminary title report was submitted to the city in 2011 with the original application. The PTR would indicate that the 10, right, just distinguishing between an assessor parcel and legal parcels. That's often missed. Sometimes they coincide. In this case, there's one APN 10 legal parcels. That was reflected in the preliminary title report in 2011. It was premature for the applicant to seek to merge the parcels when the underlying application was submitted and filed and ultimately approved in 2020. And the reason for that is because there was a different landowner, developer, two different people working sort of in concert at the time all of this was processed, and the underlying landowner did not want legal changes made to the property during the pendency of the project prior to the point in time at which O'Brien Land Company acquired the property, which was in 2024, 4 years after the project was approved. So the property owner had no ability to seek that, and it was premature to do so at that point in time. Sorry, the developer, it could not do so.
Okay, I guess I'm a little unsure why I didn't read that in the staff report. Am I missing that? I don't remember that. I mean, I completely understand what you just said. That makes sense to me. I just didn't read that, so I'm a little like, but
I'm not sure it's there, but I would go back also to that. I mean, this was the parcel merger was something that could have, with the cooperation and approval of the landowner, could have been and would have been a part of the application at the time the CUP was approved, or the use permit was approved in 2020, but we couldn't do it at that point in time. But as the use permit was protected by the Housing Accountability Act at that point in time, this is protected by the Housing Accountability Act today. And it's an issue of timing and when O'Brien Land Company acquired the property versus when the prior property owner owned the property, and the approvals that they were willing to support.
okay. Thank you for your answer. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
And staff, before we open it up for public comment, would you be able to summarize the public comments that were received today after today after publication of the staff report?
I always hesitate to do that, but I think it is fair to say that the public comment that has been received, and particularly today after the staff report was published, are along the same themes that were in the public comments for the prior meeting and that were published with the staff report for this meeting, calling into question the original project entitlements. If we had known this early on and it had been represented, that would have changed everything. It would not have. It is, again, it could have been folded in, and I just mentioned two projects that did that, and the Planning Commission approved. So it would not have changed the processing of it whatsoever in my mind. It just would have been another permit or approval sought as part of the overall project. And so in my view, this is cleanup. That was an oversight. And to the commission's question about how was this missed, the 10 parcels were mentioned individually in the title report, and it is very common to have one legal lot of record constituted by multiple parcels. And so there are at least 3 entities that use the word parcel: planners, the tax assessor, and title officers. And the distinction between what is meant there is nuanced. And so you heard counsel for the proponent mention legal lot of record versus tax parcel. So you can have multiple legal lots of record consolidated under a single tax parcel and vice versa. So, you know, you can have one legal lot of record with two different tax record parcels on it because two different areas have different land use regulations on them, let's say. So they are not a one-to-one relationship universally, but 95% of the time that's the case. And so the exhibits, the materials that were submitted to the city in 2011 all illustrated that this was a single legal lot of record with the exhibits showing a property line, which is a standard graphic, and it was identified on the exhibits. This is what the property line is, bounding the full 22.27 acres. The intermediate lots or parcels were dashed lines and not indicated as separate legal lots of record, which would have called into question at the time the permissibility of having buildings crossing property lines, et cetera. So all indications at the time for the city staff was that the parcels described in the title report were area of land, and that is how title officers and the folks who are legally, you know, this is their bailiwick, this is what they do, is keep title to land. They will describe a single legal lot of record as areas of land if it has not been produced, if you will, or the genesis of it was not a single, you know, like lot 13 of a subdivision. If a lot line revision has occurred, or even a parcel has an easement over another piece of real property, those are described as separate parcels in a title officer parlance. And I have examples of that if you would like to see that. So the read of the title report in 2011 was exactly that this single legal lot of record was compiled by prior parcels. And again, it doesn't change, it would not have changed the consideration of the project, and that this is cleanup work. And so the review was based on the materials that were submitted to us, and those materials were consistent with it being a single legal lot of record, both in the terminology and verbiage used in the title report, parcel 1, parcel 2, ... up through parcel 10, and the survey that was submitted by the project applicant showing a singular property boundary at the outside and no internal property lines. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioner Labange?
No, I'm trying to, while we're talking, also go through it so I can get the genesis of it, but what I'm reading so far seems to talk about, you know, because of this, stop the whole project, which is a little disconnected. So I'm just gonna verify if there's something else that, in my opinion, I should say. So I think you can keep going.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
So I will put up on screen. Oh, there we have it up. So this is the survey from the original submission in 2011, so 15 years ago now, wherein the legend shows subject property line. It's a long line with a double dash in it. This is industry standard for illustrating parcel lines. And that you will see that the parcel line goes around the outside. And if we continue all the way around, it encompasses the full 22 acres. What is in gray, kind of a residual, if you will, or the provenance of the overall 22 acre parcel, referenced here with these documents is illustrated with a single dash line, which is essentially a ghost line or a remnant line, which indicates lines that used to exist and is either an easement line here or a sanitary sewer line in the, well, that one has an SS. So it would be an easement line, if you will, or just a ghost line in surveying and cartography in parcel. So like if a lot line revision happens, the new line will be represented as a solid line, and the old line, which used to exist, is the dashed line. So that is the graphical representation, and I'm happy to go to the title report, which similarly describes the 22 acres as being coming historically from and being compiled from the 10 parcels. And I'm happy to bring up an example of a title report which uses the terminology and parlance which I spoke to, which is an area, parcel 1 came from this, and another area of the single parcel is parcel 2, which came from this area. I'll leave it to you whether you'd like to see that or not.
Okay, thank you. Would any of the commissioners like to see that pulled up?
I don't need to.
Okay, I think we're good. So at this point, we will open it up for public comment. As a reminder, tonight, we do welcome all comments on a project. I will say, though, our charge tonight is to either approve or deny the parcel map. We're not looking at the merits of the project, the zoning of the project, any previous approvals of the project. But we do welcome whatever comments anyone may have on the project. So we'll first go to anybody in the room. If you have not yet filled out a speaker slip and you would like to speak on this item, you can turn in a blue slip to staff, and I will look to staff to invite the first speaker.
Very good. The one speaker slip we have in the room is from Libby Henry, who has indicated that they're going to cede their time to Colin Elliott. So presuming that Colin Elliott is an online speaker, we will happily do that. And
Thank you.
moving to online attendees who would like to speak, please go ahead and raise your hand. Seeing a few hands raised, but unfortunately, I'm not able to see all of them at one time. I'm going to try to. So I'm going to allow Robert.
Greg.
Yep, will do. Thank you.
And the technician did just open the window. I don't know.
That is what I have done, but it's not on screen. So,
Okay, so it sounds like
Yep.
then there's no, just to confirm, no other speakers in the room for this item? Okay, and then maybe we'll
I'll
go
ask the
ahead and,
technician to take us through the online folks.
perfect. And then when we get to Mr. Elliott, we'll give him extra time.
If I'm hitting participants. Good.
Okay, you're,
There we go. Okay.
yeah, we do. We do.
All right. Thank you. I am able now to take care of this. So, Michael Griffiths will be the first speaker, and you are unmuted and invited to talk. Mr. Griffiths? All right, we'll come back to Mr. Griffiths. The next is Mr. Elliott, or it's just Colin on screen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Ah, welcome. Thank you. I didn't submit anything in writing. So I apologize for that. I came to this a little late, but I have two comments. The first is generally talking or one of something that Greg Wolf has said a couple of times about, I think you've had a lot of comments about prior approvals. My aspect on that for you maybe to think about is I think you're really considering this approval under the MAP Act, correct? And which has its own set of requirements. So what staff is doing is in looking back and saying all these things were approved, but some of these things are now very old. And I guess the question is it legitimate to rely on a very old fire evacuation study, etc., under the MAP Act itself, which I think is what controls here. So that would be my first point for you to consider. The second is actually more fundamental than that, and this project was approved actually because of the Housing Accountability Act as basically just a land use permit, and there was no development agreement, and therefore the land use permit itself is pretty standard for Lafayette's conditions, and one of them is the term of approval. You get 12 months. That can be extended by another 12 months. So my fundamental question is, I think the final legal appeal on this was March 2023. I think council can comment on time limits probably run from when last appeals expire or get turned down. But so we're now 3 years beyond when the original land use permit was granted. And you would need to keep that alive, you would have to have a mass grading permit or a building permit issued. The project has neither. It's had minor tree permits, demolition. Those were all things that were separately granted. But regarding the land use permit itself, I'd like to hear from somebody, and maybe you have to kind of put this meeting or any resolution on this on hold to get a written answer from councils, is how is this project actually still alive? We're 3 years beyond the last appeal date. And I think that if it's not, then obviously you can't actually make any findings on this subdivision situation because you're relying on that, which may in fact well have expired by now. So those are my two issues. Are you considering this under the MAP Act? Is it actually fair? And do you have to update some of these studies separately? And then the second, in fact, is this in fact still valid, or has the permit for the terraces actually expired? And with that, I think that's my points. Thank you.
Thank you for providing your comment. I will ask, the applicant is going to have a few minutes to provide rebuttal after all public comment. So I assume you're kind of keeping track of some of these and can speak to them. Great, thank you. Next speaker, please.
We will
It's weird now.
we will return to Mr. Griffiths and see if he's able to offer his comments. Mr. Griffiths, your hand is up. You are unmuted and you're invited to offer your comments. We are not hearing you, so we'll return to you after Robert Lavoie. Mr. Lavoie, you are up.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
We can, thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate you guys taking the comments. So following up on Colin's concerns, if any of those issues are legitimate, then some of my comments follow Elliot Hudson's emails with concerns about some of the things that may not be updated. The traffic and evacuation concerns. And we already have people complaining about traffic backing up onto the freeway, Highway 24, into traffic lanes, trying to exit to Pleasant Hill Road. Obviously, adding 300 plus homes would impact traffic to some extent. And the other thing is staff says their findings are consistent, that the APO zoning, when it was originally approved, is consistent with the current proposed 315 apartments. I thought the APO was supposed to be low impact, minimal traffic generating office use. And it doesn't seem like 315 apartment units would be the same traffic use. So it seems inconsistent. The Ridgeline ordinance, I don't know how that was overlooked, but I know that people regularly go through your commission trying to make their Ridgeline houses invisible. And obviously 315 homes perched on top of the hill with no trees are going to stick out like a sore thumb. And I believe the applicant's back to the traffic thing, I believe the applicant's own report showed that there would be some significant danger even to the residents because of the evacuation risks. So I don't think that should be minimized. Let's see. And the issue of is this require a major or a minor subdivision map? I don't know what the criteria is that bumps it into, excuse me, a major subdivision, and maybe someone could comment on that. Or are there any precedents for projects this large? I can't think of one in Lafayette that's this big, and then slipping it in under a minor subdivision map change seems inappropriate. I think that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the remaining hand up is Mr. Griffiths. We'll return to Mr. Griffiths a third time. Hopefully you're able to. We see that you have unmuted yourself, but we are still not able to hear you.
Greg,
And-
excuse me, do you mind walking him through how to change? Maybe sometimes his microphone might be the wrong selection and settings.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Mr. Griffiths, in the lower left, are you speaking with him? Okay. If you can hear me, Mr. Griffiths, bottom left of the screen is the audio. There's a up caret that if you.
Okay, excuse me, staff is handling it. Thank you.
So you should be able to choose your microphone and choose the one which works best, or you can toggle it. So I can put my screen up if he wants to see it. It's down in the bottom left. It's audio. And if you click the up caret, you can select a microphone and choose it. So you are unmuted because I have the option to mute you, and it shows that an active mic, not with a slash through it in red. So we'll give you another couple seconds to try to take care of the audio issue, and then I think I'll turn it back to the chair. Mr. Griffiths is the last raised hand.
Okay, we'll give him just a minute here, or if anyone can figure out how to reach him.
No, we have unmuted you.
He's asking for directions.
Okay, maybe if there's anyone in the room that can summarize Mr. Griffith's comments, that would be great. It is an option to call in as a courtesy, but we have tried to walk the speaker, the commenter, through the steps.
You're saying he's on his phone?
Yeah, he said, can you have somebody call him with directions? He can hear you right now.
Got it.
So at this point, Mr. Griffiths, sounds like you're not able to hear us.
Can hear us.
Oh, he can, but
Hearing you through the phone.
okay.
If anyone in the room recalls how to unmute yourself on a Zoom if you've called in, I want to say it's *6, but it's been a very long time since I committed that to memory. Or
Let me pull out my phone and Google it.
but it appears that he's on his computer, so there's no indication that. Apologies that I don't have this committed to memory. Yeah. So
Great.
if
So-
you are on your phone, Mr. Griffiths, press *6 and you should be unmuted. My screen is showing, as you saw, that he is unmuted.
Okay, well, it seems like the speaker is unable to provide his comment. Staff has provided options and direction on joining. It is also on the first page of the agenda. So, at this point, I'll just look to staff. Are there any other hands raised, any other speakers, online?
No.
Okay, and there's no others in the room, so we'll bring it back to the applicant. If you would like to respond to any of the public comments received tonight. Thank you.
Good evening again, Brian Winter on behalf of the applicant. I think there's not much for us to say, but a little bit. Again, the project application was filed and deemed complete in 2011. At that point in time, the applicable general plan, land use designation, and zoning carried forward. The project essentially vests with respect to those. The project was approved in 2020. The project applicant could not seek to merge the parcels at that point in time because the applicant did not own the parcels. The vesting that carried forward under the HAA required and the city regulations required that the project not seek a mass grading permit, but that it seek a grading permit and that it commence grading, which has been done. So there's no question that all of that has happened, that the project underlying approvals remain in effect today. The only issue on the table is the merger of the parcels, which could have been done back originally and would have been protected by the HA in the same way that it is protected today. I'm happy to answer any other questions, but I hope that's clear.
Thank you. Any
And,
questions?
I'm just writing this down. So the grading permit was received and perfected, so grading started?
Correct.
Okay.
Greg might know the date. It might have been 2022 or 2023, but it was received and perfected within the relevant period of time.
And just for everyone's, that basically perfects a permit. I want, I know you understand and I kind of understand, but for everyone else. And this goes to the question about like, is this still alive? Well, once you start a project, that time frame changes. You still have other timeframes, perhaps. You can't just be indefinite, but if my understanding, and I'll look to staff to and I'm just doing this for clarity for people because I hate to be up here and hear all these questions that seem like we're not answering them, but sometimes they're not germane to the subject at hand, which the chair has already said, we're looking at a very specific thing. But to this nuanced point, my understanding is that the grading permit has been issued and they've graded, then they have started the project. So I don't know what other time frame they're under. Can we look to staff to see if there's another time frame just to kind of put to rest this, is this too old? Because I don't think this should linger out there. This is a big project.
Yeah, so why don't we ask any other questions to the applicant and then we can ask staff to clarify?
And just, what was it, you guys, O'Brien, acquired in 2024?
Yeah, took ownership of the property in 2024. Correct.
Okay, I have no more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll close public comment, we'll bring it to the commission, but if staff is ready to provide a response to Commissioner LeBon's question, that'd be great.
And the city attorney for the project is on the call, and I'll invite him to follow my comments. But staff agrees with the comment from Mr. Winter that the permit was sought, issued, they did the work within it. They've got additional permits for the bulk of the project submitted for many months at the county, and have been going through plan check and revisions and addressing their comments. And as I said at the outset, I believe that those are either ready to be issued or just about. And one of the issues that they need to resolve before that permit can be issued is the lot merger, in my understanding, and I'll invite the applicant team to correct me if I'm wrong. And so just like the conditions of approval need to be addressed before the permit is the permits related to the mass grading and construction, they have been fulfilling those mitigation measures. And this is one aspect of the work necessary to put in place before that permit can be issued. And again, these are the follow-on permits, not the initial permit for a grading permit, which was already issued and work began and was completed. So with that, Mr. Hodel, Rob Hodel is on the line, and we can bring him up on screen and he can address the commission's question.
Yes. Good evening, commissioners. Rob Hodel with Cobblins, Patch, Duffy and Bass, and I've been the outside attorney that's been advising the city on this project, through the earlier approval process as well as current. And yes, the applicant has pulled sufficient permits to keep the use permit that was approved back in 2020 and then upheld in the courts through 2022 alive. And there's no question that the use permits remain valid at this time.
Thank you. While you're there, I'll just ask for the commissioners, are there any other questions you'd like to ask? No? Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Okay, so public comment is closed. It's at the commission. Again, we're looking at the parcel map tonight. I will open it up for comments, thoughts.
I can go. You want?
Sure.
I have reviewed all the, sorry, I didn't think what I was gonna say here. All of the conditions that we need to individually be able to support to move forward and vote. So I'm ready to, and I'm not explaining myself very well, but conditions of, why don't you let someone else go and I'll think of what the hell I'm saying.
Sure.
Sorry.
I think typically we're making findings, right?
Findings,
So you're
thank you.
looking at it.
That was the word. I reviewed all the findings. I'm looking at them right now because I highlighted every single one as I went through and checked off whether I had issues. The only one, let's see, deemed complete 2011. So all of mine with what we've answered tonight, I'm prepared to make findings and move forward.
Okay.
I concur.
So do I.
Okay, and I will just say, I do appreciate staff on this one. I know typically staff doesn't provide as much extra explanation on items, but we do appreciate it. And I think the community appreciates it as well, so thank you. I too can support this project based on the criteria that we have to look at. And just so people do know, it is spelled out in the resolution for the minor subdivision, the government code, the findings that we would need to make to approve this such project. So that is included as an attachment to the staff report. And what I'm hearing is everyone can make those. So excuse me, go ahead.
I'll just clarify for the benefit of the public, the resolution in its draft form presented to the commission and published with the packet is in PDF pages 4 through 7 of the packet.
Thank you for clarifying. I'll look for a motion if anyone wants to make a motion.
Sure. I move that we approve resolution 2026-02, approving the parcel map and minor subdivision.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There's no opposed. And does this have a 14-day appeal or no?
There is a 14-day appeal period. The what is generally called the final map. So there's a preliminary map, and then once the final map goes onto the city council's consent calendar as a matter of course.
Okay.
So it would appear there even without an appeal.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go back to the agenda. So give people just a minute here to exit. The next item, 8B, is request for Phase 1 Hillside Development Permit, Design Review, Lot Line Revision, Grading Permit, Category 2 Tree Permit. This project will be presented by staff.
Yes.
Monica, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Monica Lee, consultant planner. The item you have before you is an item that was actually continued, so apologies. It should have been on, it should have been item 7A instead. And this was continued from the March 2nd Planning Commission meeting. So staff will provide a little bit of history because in the previous meeting, some of the commissioners mentioned maybe wanting to understand a little bit more about the previous projects that were proposed. So staff will provide that. So in 2011, Phase 1 Hillside Development Permit application was submitted, and in March 17, 2014, PC approved the Phase 1 and the lot line revision. And then the conditions of approval included minimizing the retaining walls, the stormwater management to be satisfied, or is to meet the satisfaction of the city engineer. So the 5,600 square foot west house, which is on the west lot, there was a condition that required the reduction of plate heights and the roof pitch. And then for the 5,750 square foot east house, there was a condition of approval, indicating that the roof plate heights and roof pitch should also be reduced, and also a 20% reduction of the building size, which would equal to a 4,400 square foot home. Sorry, I don't know why okay. And then so in 2015, a phase 2 application was submitted for the west lot, which was approved in 2018. The conditions of approval included that there should be a reduction in the first floor plate height from 9 feet 6 inches to 8 feet. And then the maximum height of the retaining walls, where it's highly visible, should be no taller than 4 feet. And but no construction has occurred to this date on the west lot. And then in 2015, a separate application was submitted for the subject site, which is on the east lot. The Planning Commission denied the project, and the City Council upheld that denial. In the staff report, staff had recommended a reduction in the plate heights from 11 feet 6 inches to 10 feet. And then the building size be reduced by 20%, which is 4,600 square feet. And then the maximum 4 feet retaining walls where it's highly visible. And then in 2021, a new application was submitted, and the application was never deemed complete, and so was subsequently withdrawn. And then now in 2025, the current application was submitted, and that's the item that you have before you. And so at the March 2nd, 2026 Planning Commission meeting, the planning commissioners reviewed the phase 1 hillside development permit application. The commission generally expressed general support for citing the residents on the bench, but raised concerns regarding overall massing, the retaining walls, grading, and potential drainage impacts. The commission determined that additional information was necessary to adequately evaluate the proposed siding and massing. Specifically, the commission requested supplemental materials, including section views illustrating the relationship of the proposed home and retaining walls to the street and neighboring properties, street level visualizations, accurate depictions of retaining wall heights, the proposed lot line adjustment to be reflected on the site constraint sheet, and a 3D view. And so staff will briefly run through the next slides just as a refresher. Here is the site context. To the left, you have the vicinity map, and then to the right, you have the 2 parcels. Grading will be occurring across both parcels, but the proposed building will be on the east lot. And here is the proposed lot line adjustment. The line in red, that's dash, is proposed to be removed, and the line that is in green is the proposed new lot line. The applicant proposes the construction of a 6,160 square foot 2-story single-family residence. The maximum height will be 28 feet. The The building will be located on a bench in the lower central portion of the site. It is positioned outside the Class 2 ridgeline setback. New driveway access from Hillside Valley Road with step retaining walls. Here is the site plan. The front setback is approximately 65 feet, 6 inches. The left setback is approximately 20 feet. The right setback is 46 feet from the building and 27 feet from the deck and pool. The required aggregate side yard is 40 feet minimum, and the applicant is proposing 66 feet. And for parking, the applicant proposes 6 spaces, and the requirement is 2. And here is the context map. The closest house is approximately 242 feet away, which is 3997 Happy Valley. The 7.93 acre site is a steep hillside parcel with protected trees and significant slope constraints, particularly toward the upper ridgeline area, which remains undisturbed. The proposed residence is strategically sited on the existing lower bench to avoid steep slopes and the Class 2 ridgeline setback. On the south elevation presents a predominantly horizontal profile that steps with the natural slope of the site, minimizing vertical exposure. The maximum height of the structure, again, is 28 feet. On the north elevation, facing the uphill side of the property, it appears lower in scale due to the building's partial embedment into the hillside. The east elevation demonstrates how the residence is integrated into the steep downslope condition, with portions of the lower level embedded into the hillside to reduce vertical exposure. The design maintains a strong horizontal emphasis through flat roof lines, sunshades, and articulated wall planes. The west elevation illustrates how the residence steps down with the natural slope of the site, with the garage level partially embedded into the hillside to reduce overall perceived height. The garage is set, so this is a section through the garage. The garage is set lower into the hillside, which helps reduce the perceived mass from the street. The main living spaces are supported on a cross-space foundation, allowing the home to follow the natural grade rather than requiring a large flat pad. This is a section through the family room. This section illustrates how the home is designed to follow the natural slope of the site rather than creating a large flat pad. The subject is supported on the structure is supported on a cross-space foundation, which reduces the need for excessive grading and helps the building step into the hillside. The approach minimizes visual prominence and maintains the natural landform. And here is a cross-section through the house. And a section through Happy Valley. This section shows how the home steps with the slope, with the living spaces elevated above the downhill side and supported by retaining walls and foundation. The person shown for scale helps demonstrate the height of the structure relative to the slope and street. There are 2 4-foot retaining walls located along the front of the property and 2 6-foot retaining walls located behind the proposed structure. And the closest retaining wall is approximately 23 feet from the front property line. This section shows the relationship between the home driveway and slope, with the structure stepping into the hillside and the garage partially embedded below the main living space. The driveway follows the new grade and is supported by areas of engineered fill and retaining walls near the property's edge. And this is a 3D view rendering that the applicant provided. And here is a rendering of the south view. And here is another rendering of the south, from the southeast view. And another rendering from the southwest view. So there was 19 notices mailed to property owners within 300 feet. And site postings, within 10 days before the March 2nd, 2026 hearing. At the hearing, the item was continued to the April 20th meeting, and so no additional notice were provided. However, staff did email a lot of the neighbors to remind them that we have a meeting today. And so we received 4 comment letters, some from previous meetings that were noticed. And so we have comment letters from November 23rd, 2025. And then we received another comment letter on April 16th and another one on April 17th. And those are all published and attached. So based on the public comment and planning commission feedback, staff added some additional site-specific conditions of approval. So the phase 1 is reviewed by PC, and phase 2 will be reviewed by DRC, and then it will go back to PC for final approval. As part of the phase 2 application, the applicant will need to provide, right now there is a preliminary landscape plan, but they will need to provide landscape and irrigation plans, which would be reviewed by the city's landscape consultant. And they would need to provide more responses to agency comments. Prior to the phase 2 PC meeting, the hydrology and hydraulics report shall reflect the final design and be peer reviewed. And the geotechnical report shall also reflect the final design and be peer reviewed as well. Here are the findings required for all of the required entitlements associated with this project. Therefore, based on the record as a whole, staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt PC Resolution 2026-04, approving the project subject to the conditions.
Thank you. I appreciate the staff report. I know we'd previously provided comments of breaking up the attachments and stuff, so I do appreciate, I noticed that. I also like, one of our questions or our requests was to better document, just for our understanding the project, or excuse me, the site's history. This is a brand new application, correct? Yeah, so I appreciate that. And also to the applicant's team, that a lot of the information that we did request in this last meeting was provided. Still have some questions, but appreciate that. So thank you to staff. Are there any clarifying questions for staff? Commissioner Lawange?
Deep sigh.
Oh, it was just coincidence.
I just want to make sure, so we have 2 parcels, and I'm just going to talk about the last 3. 004, which is what we're talking about tonight. That's the new one. But in listening to yours, and actually at one of your exhibits, like the second or third one where it showed, keep going back, it showed 2 houses on it, and it got me kind of perplexed for a second. Keep going. Okay, let's do that one. Yeah, that one's it. So we're looking at the right tonight.
Yes.
My question is the left. Is that currently, my reading is that's currently been through a phase 2 approval and it's been approved. Okay.
Yes.
Is that still a valid? At the end of the comment on that section, I think it says no construction has occurred to date. And it was approved it was deemed complete in 2018 and then adopted by the Planning Commission in June of 2018, subject to the conditions of approval. So I'm just curious, like as of today, could that be built with what was approved back in 2018? And the reason I'm asking is because I thought we were just looking at one house right now, but it sounds like there's one house, but maybe there's another house that's already ready to be approved next to it.
No, so that project was entitled on the left, but I do not believe they submitted building permits, and so I actually, let me look at the date to see when exactly it was approved.
This year was the Planning Commission adopted the resolution on June 18th, 2018. It was deemed complete prior to that, April 5th, 2018.
So let's see.
So that's, what's almost 8 years? Is my math right? 8 years? I just want clarity on it because in the end, it says no construction has occurred to date. It makes me think that it could.
Yes, it's just that it was entitled, and so they could have constructed, and then so
Okay.
no construction occurred. But since it was approved in 2018, it probably expired because usually our permits last 1 year. And then they have to request an extension for an additional year unless they apply for a building permit. So if they didn't request for an extension or apply for a building permit,
Okay.
then it's probably expired.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason why this was shown is it was actually part of the the applicant, this is the applicant's site plan. So it's because they're using a similar design in terms of the access.
Yeah.
So that whole access in terms of fire access and turnaround, that was all approved. So they're using that same design, except that they're proposing a different
Right.
home on the east lot.
And they have every right to do something there. I just want to make sure that we weren't unaware that
Mhm.
I think it would be helpful in these to say when no construction has occurred to date, if they couldn't do it now, I think we should share that
Okay.
because it makes it a little more understandable. But
Understood.
I understand now, so thank you.
Mhm.
So that's all I had.
Commissioner Mason?
Yes, will the geotechnical report and hydraulic reports be available for public viewing when they're submitted? And 2, can they be made available more than just the bare minimum 3 days before the meeting? Because I know that there were a lot of concerns about hydrology and runoff. And should somebody wish to inspect it, they should have sufficient time to do it and to consult with somebody else. I personally would like to look at the geotechnical report that's within my area of expertise.
Okay, so yes, the geotechnical report and hydraulics, the hydrology and hydraulics reports were all included in the current package as well as the previous meetings packages as well. So they're all a part of the current package and the package for the March 2nd meeting. So those are all included.
Yeah, the question was the specific request is we wanted to make sure it was based on a more complete design. I forgot how you.
Yes, yes. So definitely when if the project moves to phase 2 and when the project moves to phase 2, they will be updating the reports based upon any changes to the design that may occur as they receive more feedback from Planning Commission and DRC. And then the reports will be updated and peer reviewed and also included in all of the packages, the meeting packages.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The applicant's team here tonight who would like to give up to 10 minutes.
Hello, Edward Patmont. I'm the architect for the project. Monica did a good job going through all the additional requirements. She was very persistent getting some of these, especially the 3D stuff with Google Earth, but I think you can really get a sense from those as to how, well, for one thing, the neighbors, the closest one is 240 feet. The one on our side is over 300 feet to our east. So she went through the drawings, but 3.1 is a section that you wanted going down to the street, showing 2 4-foot high walls. Last time I was here, there was some comment that there was a 16-foot high wall at the street, if you remember. And no, it's 2 4-foot high walls right at the driveway. There is some fill in the driveway and there's cut at the building. It's a balanced cut and fill. The 3D views again show the building, the ones from the street, show how now this is with no landscaping, and this is at the street level. I mean at the house level. But Monica, if you just turn to the ones here, especially the one to the side, you can see I want to say barely see the house. You will barely see the house when the landscaping takes hold. So I just want to summarize that I think we satisfied your requirement there. Now, moving on, I've had 2 good neighborhood meetings, one on Thursday and one last Saturday. Charlie got everybody together. From my records, there was 4 items that were discussed. One was hydrology, and to the left of this screen, the other lot, fortunately, it has access to a storm drain that goes to Upper Happy Valley. The entire lot to our left, as well as, I would say, a great deal, I don't want to speak because I'm not an engineer, a great deal of our water will be going to Upper Happy Valley. Right now, all of our water goes down, and if it doesn't get absorbed into the soil, it goes into a catch basin that goes across the street and dumps into the neighbor's yard. That's not good. I've asked the city engineer if that can be fixed, and he said, I kind of laughed and said, no, that will not happen. The city will not rectify that. So it's up to us to provide a means with a bioretention facility and other means. Engineers do this all the time to slow down the water so that the water going across the street or into the street at least will be less than what it is now. It will be an improvement. That's hydraulics. Second item we talked about were the existing walnut trees. The only reason I wanted to take the existing walnut trees is because my arborist said they're about approaching their 50-year lifespan. They look a little haphazard, so we said, wouldn't it be better to plant some new? But absolutely we'll leave those walnut trees. I think it's a good idea, especially the adjacent neighbor who came, and that would provide immediate screening. So there's no problem with number 2. Secondly, as we were leaving, Charlie mentioned perhaps readjusting the side deck. Yeah, and Monica mentioned there's 28-foot height, it's actually 22 foot. But when you take it down and measure it with the side yard, which has a little skirt wall, I included that 6 feet. So it's, 28 feet. But we can redo that. I'm willing to do that. Go back into the floor plan and maybe reorient the pool. I think that's a good idea, especially because south is facing downhill. The fourth item we talked about was the overall size. And Charlie again pointed out that the previous design was limited to 4,600 square feet. I cannot say this in more certain terms. That's a no-go. I cannot build what is demanded on this site, $1 million of grading, tremendous costs. Can't do it at 4,500 square feet. If you look at that plan, I need every square inch of that 6,000 square feet. It's just a fact. I'm not going to put $6 million into a home and sell it for $5.5 million. It's just impossible. So if that's your feeling, if that's what you tell me tonight, then so be it. Okay. We'll deal with that. Okay. Massing, as you can see from the previous application, that was a big building, had a lot of roof, had a lot of stone. Ours is not that. It's a 2-story building only because there's a garage below. It's a 1-story building with a garage below. That makes sense, right? You're going uphill. So people are going to have to walk up one level, but we have one level. If you want me to go to a second level and reduce the footprint, well, we can talk about that too. I don't think that's a positive for anybody. So we've met all the side yard. We have 20 feet on the one side, 45 or something on the other. We can easily get to, 2.5 times the minimum, or 50 feet, 65 feet in the front. I mean, a gazillion feet to the back. I think it's over 2,000 feet. So by the objective standards, and not to mention the height, we've met all the requirements. If you say that this building is too massive, that's a subjective opinion, isn't it? There's nothing written in the code that gives you that ability other than your personal feeling. But there's something out there called SB 330, and that is not. I can read that to you if you'd like. It's just not something that the state of California allows anymore. So please, there's millions of dollars invested here, on both lots. Let's move on. It's just a shame that it keeps getting regurgitated back. I'm here to solve a problem. I want this to be my last project before I retire. If it doesn't happen, that's fine. But I cannot deal with just endless stuff. Let's make a decision one way or the other, and we'll go from there. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, wait. So I will say, Mr. Patmore, thank you for your presentation. I know you sound frustrated. I know this is a long process. My understanding is that this is a new application. So while, yes, there have been previous direction that you made reference to, this is new. You mentioned, so one, I'd like to thank you. A lot of the requests that we did make in the last meeting, you did do. I'd like to ask a couple questions and then open it up to the commission for other questions. One of the items we had asked, the rendering previously that kind of showed the backyard, made the backyard look pretty flat, or excuse me, the hillside looked pretty flat before it went up steep.
Yeah.
So along those lines, I drove out to the site on Sunday. I drove by, and from what I could see from the street, and I realize it's different than what it's going to look like after grading.
Yeah.
But Monica, if you don't mind going to it was the rendering of the southwest view. Yeah, so that one's fine. Southeast is fine. On our drawings, it shows that it's 24 feet from the property line to the closest retaining wall to the street. Does this rendering represent that same distance? Because to me, this looks very similar to the previous rendering that made the slope uphill look so slight.
Now, remember, okay, the drawings that better represent the actual dimensions are the section and the site plan. This is a pictorial that frankly, I didn't do it, but I had people, do it. But I will say this, that whatever that dimension is from the retaining wall to the street, there's the property line, and then there's 11 or 12 feet.
Oh yeah, excuse me, to the.
So it's 30. So is that 30 feet? We were looking at that during a meeting, and the neighbors had the same question.
35, yeah.
35 feet. I don't know. I mean, I don't use this for that,
Okay, that's fair. I'm not going to necessarily
Yeah.
use it, but our request specifically was to show accurate rendering. So I'm just asking a question.
I tried my best. I really did.
Okay.
I'm not trying to misrepresent anything.
No, I appreciate that.
This house sits above, and with the grading that we'll do, and this is an important point, with the fill that we'll do and the retaining walls, it really will block a lot of the house.
Yeah, so perfect. That goes
So-
to my next question.
Go ahead.
When I was out there, so you come up Happy Valley Road, it's on
Right.
the right. And from what I could tell driving in both directions, you could really only see the story poles from the southeast corner of the property.
Okay, because of-
So from the roadway.
Because of the
Right.
walnut trees.
Well, no, just because of the hill, like
Okay.
you can't really see the story poles other places. So at least from a vehicle, because there's nowhere to pull over and get out and
That's for
walk.
sure.
But do those story poles represent the house or the retaining wall?
Both. So when
The closest ones?
Yeah, when I first came to you, I just did the house because that's what
Yeah.
I was told. Then one of the commissioners
Yeah, last meeting.
asked about doing some more. So we did. We have 4 story poles representing left side, 2 middles, and the right side with 2 sets of retaining walls. And so the string line on the top is the top of the one retaining wall, and the string line on the next one is the top of the other.
white
Both
string?
4 foot tall,
Okay.
even though they appear taller in the middle because that's where the fill will go.
Yeah, okay, that's helpful. That's what I wanted to make sure that white string
Yeah.
was the retaining wall.
These are retaining walls.
And then I'm happy to hear that you've had 2 community meetings since our last meeting. You talked about 4 basic topics. So you shared the topics that you presented. Did the community come? Did any of the neighbors come? How did that meeting go?
I think it went really well. I mean, obviously, they're here to tell you their side. These were my notes. I took 4 points, major points. There was other things talked about, obviously, but those are the things. And 3 of the 4, I have a lot of flexibility with. 4th, I told you I don't, but they can tell you their side. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there were 2 meetings. Thank you. And then my last question is, knowing that the parcel west
Mhm.
is not part of this project, except for there will be the grading for the driveway to access
Correct.
this. Will any other grading take place on that western parcel during this construction or grading of this, or only strictly for the driveway?
Only strictly for the driveway.
Okay.
Which, because there's a little cut, we'll have to go back, I don't know, 20, 30 feet. Because we wouldn't probably want a wall of dirt, it would probably some transition area. But by and large, no other grading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll open up to the, wait, one sec. Other
Oh, yeah.
commissioners, Commissioner Mason.
Question, will you need, I saw on this one that there's a hammerhead.
Yes,
that go in with this phase? Will you need
Correct.
retaining walls with it? Or
correct.
You just, grade it,
All of which are shown on the plan and all of which have been approved. And the maximum height on that, I believe, is 6 feet on the lower side
Mhm.
and only 4 feet on the upper side. So 6 feet of retaining walls on each side, and only really initially when you make the turn in and then you go up, the retaining walls actually go away.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I'm going to defer my questions to you after the other public comments, and that those will have to do around the storm drain comments you made about the engineer. And so I'm going to return to those after our
Great.
break.
Look forward to it.
So at this point is when we would typically open for public comment. We are going to take a 5-minute break. So if you would like to give public comment and you haven't yet filled out a speaker slip, please, I see one in the room, but please fill out a blue slip, bring it up to staff. Looks like it's 9:01. We'll take a break until 9:06.
On that clock. Yes.
Yeah, on the clock up here.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and resume the meeting. It's on the clock here, it's 9:06. And as a recap, we had just finished the applicant's presentation, and we're going to open it up for public comment. So first, we'll welcome any speakers who are in the room. I know staff has 3 or 4 blue slips. If you would like to speak tonight and you've not filled out a blue paper, please fill out a speaker slip and hand it to staff.
Starting with the speakers in the room, Charlie Glavin, followed by Beverly Jane Petrus.
Greg, did you get Malcolm Fairbanks as well?
I did. He's going to be,
Oh, okay.
he will follow Emily Jane Fairbairn.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you once again. I'm going to try and reference the commissioners by first name. Sorry, Anna. And I would also like to thank Ed for having those meetings and being accommodating. Rather than go through and restate a lot of the issues from prior submissions or even other things, let me address a couple of concerns the commission explicitly mentioned either last time or have mentioned since 2015 and 2018, as it does pertain and things really haven't changed. First of all, Stephen had expressed a concern about the new plan not being compared to the old plans to give some sort of idea of comparative footprint. I did an overlay that's included, which shows the old versus the new one that was in the packet. And as you can see, there has been a significant expansion in terms of that footprint. And that is an apples to apples comparison, not just done by size, but by the total footprint, not including the retaining walls. And that still, you know, and I would recall the commission's prior resolutions, conditional approvals, were on the footprint being reduced by 20%, not the square footage. Second, Carl had noted a concern about proximity. I think this has been addressed by Monica in regards to the prior plans had the house at a 58 to 68 foot setback, whereas the current plans have a 27 and 48. So it's effectively reducing this, the setback in half. But the proximity isn't the only complication. In order for this footprint to work, the design isn't just using every bit of the bench, as Carl noted last meeting, but requires dirt from the cut on the hillside to be expanded into the bench closer to the Fairbairns lines. And remember, this is a swale, not an engineered grading previously. And this actually echoes a concern raised by the city in 2017 and 18 when it noted that the design, which was actually a smaller one, was, quote, reconstructs the bench or development pad in a manner that would increase the development area to accommodate a sprawled design. This manipulates the land to suit the building rather than designing the building to respond to the land. I believe that was April 2017 quote. Fourth, the expansion of the footprint also means removing critical trees, which Ed has, been accommodated, but there's a lot, of other trees that are still slated to be removed and expose the general area. And as you noticed, that part of Happy Valley Road actually protrudes out rather than being recessed. Fifth, and I don't believe that this was noted, is that the hydrology report, Greg, that you had mentioned, the hydrology report that was included since November of last year actually is based on the old design, not on the current one. And that's included on page 7 of the actual design. That is not the current design. And so the hydrology studies and other comments, even by the city engineer, are out of date. These are basically representing 2018, and so any assertions met to that, let alone peer review, should be considered to be invalid, at least for now. And lastly, while the current approval is the first step, and we know this, the impact on the trees necessary to be approved, for cutting, Ed has been willing to take a look at this, but we would ask that the commission take a look and ensure compliance with the city's TPO, the Tree Protection Ordinance, along with Ordinance 539, because we've already had some violations of that. And even when the Collinses originally proposed this in 2014 and 15, they said they would save all of the trees. This is still a concern because that area becomes very exposed. And while it is very, possible to jam an expensive house into that hillside, like they do in Berkeley, the impact should not look like something that's suited more to overhanging the Caldecott Tunnel. That's something that fits into Happy Valley or into Lafayette overall. We can cite many of other houses on Happy Valley Road that do conform to that do protect the trees and are of, equal size or smaller than what is being proposed on the same side of the street. This just is not consistent at this point. And for that reason, we just don't think that the size is reasonable to the construction. I understand Ed's economic concerns, but the design's got to fit, not the economics justify, the means. Thanks.
Thank you. One sec. Are there any questions for the speaker?
Yeah.
Commissioner DeGiorgio?
Hi.
Hi.
Just to be clear, when I was mentioning the proximity to the neighbors to the east, I noted it was closer. I noticed the distance, but also I didn't state that that portion of the property isn't really where the house is located, right? It's house is set back farther.
Right. The house, well, no, the house is actually closer itself. So in the previous design, the house was 68 feet. Now it's 48 feet.
To the property line, I think.
To the property line.
Right.
But in addition, if you take a look at the retaining walls, those are closer. So that distance has been cut from 58 feet down to 27. So the implications relative to the natural drainage area, including the out-of-date reports, which had that much larger area, but also the other factor within this hydrology report is if you actually take a look at the hammerhead within there, the previous design realized that the drainage was not sufficient, which would be on that east side. So there's actually a collection area.
Wait, excuse me, because if you could just respond to Commissioner
Yep.
DeGiorgio's question.
I wanted to get a little more information about your meeting in terms of in your letter also you discussed storm driveway being the driveways being flooded from
Yep.
storms and to the applicant's point that a lot of the water is going to be redirected down towards Upper Happy Valley drainage.
Not on the east side. If you actually walked it, it's an impossibility. Now, in the original 2014 and 15, the city made a mistake and actually had indicated that storm drain was connected. I did photos in 2015 indicating that the city was wrong. The storm drain was not connected, but rather runs off into the Petros's property. That's still the case. Gravity, water's not going to flow up.
I get that. I wanted you to clarify what the city engineer said in terms of your concerns on it not being connected.
Didn't.
Oh, he didn't. Okay.
Didn't address it. And as you heard from the original speaker, today, the correction of a lot of these the storm drain lines were noted, but there just was no money to correct that. And it would have been very extensive. When they redid the storm drains on Happy Valley Road, I believe it was a 2-week shutdown that they had to do in sections overall. So it would be pretty extensive for it. But when the Collinses originally presented their proposal in 2014 and 15, they were assuming that was the case. Much of the hydrology reports, including the Humans, did as well. Given that you've removed a lot of the natural grading for the passive absorption, along with the removal of the collection area by the hammerhead within this, I'd really love to have a couple of my friends who are very well versed in this do a peer review on it, because I just don't see how that transitory argument is possible.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us. I'm more comfortable writing than speaking, so I'm going to read what I wrote. We've heard a lot of numbers tonight, and here are the numbers that I can speak to. We bought the property at 3991 Happy Valley Road 16 years ago with the intent to remodel a 50-year-old family home. After spending 6 months drawing up plans, we came to the realization that creating a home for 4 kids, 3 cats, 1 dog, a flock of chickens, and a couple of goats would require more work than fine-tuning a remodel. So we started over and went through the process of designing and building a home from the ground up, a home that would accommodate our family of 6, our extended family who live 1,000 miles away, and hopefully someday a dozen grandchildren. Embarking on this process was a privilege. And so it was undertaken thoughtfully, creatively, and lovingly. We painstakingly preserved the grapevines which grew on the previous home planted in 1960 by its original owners, the Koshland family. We maintained their extensive orchards, greenhouse, and gardens. For 50 years before we came along, the Koshlands owned both the 2.3-acre lot where we live, as well as the hillside, the very steep, giant hillside that is not what was in that picture in question. They often spoke of their intentions to preserve the open hillside across the street. The Koshlands did. And when the property was sold upon the death of Mr. Koshland, the hillside was split off as a separate listing. We would have loved to purchase and preserve the hillside as well, but with 4 little kids at the time and both my husband and I starting up our own companies, it was not in the cards. I go into all of this because the Collins architect, Ed, said something in our meeting Saturday that struck me. He said it Saturday and he said it again tonight. There is no way he will design a smaller house. He cannot and will not reduce the square footage. As a spec house, the project must make money, period. The Collinses are not designing a home while trying to figure out which kid sleeps like a log and could use some Eastern sun to boost them out of bed, or which kid likes loud music, sorry, and needs to be furthest from the neighbors. In fact, the Collinses have no reason to care what the neighbors think after design review. After all, the developers are not going to be our Lafayette neighbors. In regards to our Lafayette community, all of our Lafayette community, the Collinses seem not to be interested in creating a home that is in keeping with the traditional style and more modest scale of the neighborhood. Additionally, the Collinses have shown repeatedly a proclivity for lying to hopeful homeowners about permitting, as well as a penchant for cutting corners and heritage live oaks to get what they want. I brought a print tonight that most of you have probably seen around town. Is that a timer? I'm going to keep going. This photo was taken on our corner at Happy and Upper Happy and hangs in the entry as a reminder that we were here.
Excuse me 1 sec. Is that the 3-minute timer or is that 1 minute to go?
That's the 3-minute.
Okay, if you don't mind just wrapping up another like 5 seconds.
For sure. So here's one very simple ask. Thank you for addressing it earlier tonight, Ed. Please save, prune, and care for the neglected walnut grove between our homes. These trees provide greenery and good neighbor screening, as well as landslide prevention, water retention, and a perfect perch for the hawks to spot mice in the gardens of all your neighbors across the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just one.
Just 1 sec. We're going to ask you a couple of
I'm
questions.
sorry, you're trying to hold up something. What is that?
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that picture. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason, was that your question too? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe there's one more speaker in the room, or maybe a couple.
One more in the room, and that is Malcolm Fairbairn.
Sorry, could you say the name again?
Malcolm Fairbairn.
Thank you.
And to advise the chair, my laptop has run out of battery and no charger, or not a working charger. So I'll rely on our technician to call on any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. You have 3 minutes. Thanks.
Hi, I live at 3972 Happy Valley Road. It's the old Watson property. The closest to what I have the closest dwelling, there is a very expensive greenhouse that is much closer than any of the other properties that were listed tonight. I've had an opportunity, and my first reaction was the same as you guys. The renderings just don't show how steep it is. Thank you for driving by the property. To give you, I have several photographs here because I had a chance to walk up the story poles. you know, more or less, there's a 45-foot telephone pole that is basically the same height as the bench. The bench, I had it about directly, you know, maybe 50, 60 yards away. So we're almost at a 45-degree angle on the shortest route right down to the road. The entire property is just being carved into the mountain. There's massive grading that has to happen, obviously, and the renderings really just, I don't think they really show just how much it was, except for that very small person relative to everything else. It looks like the entire property is just gonna be carved. It's all crowded in an area that is directly facing my property line with where the road is. And so I'm concerned about the grading, landsides, drainage, and also all of the vegetation and the problems it will have with that. The other item that I have is that the story poles that I saw there show that it's only 6 feet above where the bench is, which seemed very odd to me that the entire house is only 6 feet above the bench. And so I have photographs here that show that too. I just want to make sure that the poles are accurate. We're representing, and it looks almost like you're constructing a pyramid with terracing and grading and one level after the other in order to make it a nice property. So I'm concerned with all the land that has to be moved, landslides, property or slides, drainage, vegetation, and also the renderings didn't show all the power poles. And if he is removing them, thank you. I would appreciate that. I always think that looks, but the renderings made it look much better than, and it's almost misrepresented it. And if you want to see photographs, I have them. You've been there, but it's straight vertical up and down. And yeah, those are things I'm mostly concerned about.
Thank you.
All right.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you.
Are the story poles accurate? Are we?
So what'll happen is after public comment, the applicant's team will get a chance to provide response, and I'm very hopeful the applicant will speak to that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had been, I didn't know if it was that impactful, but I was curious. From your house, are you able to see the story poles?
From my house, no, I can probably see them from the greenhouse, but not from, we have enough trees and other stuff from my house. I cannot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so last call.
Trees get taken down, I could.
Okay.
Thank you. Last call for any other comments in the room? Okay, online. I will look to,
Our meeting technician, if they can check.
There are no hands raised in our virtual audience.
Thank you.
thank you. So now will be an opportunity for the applicant to provide a rebuttal / responses to some of the comments that were provided tonight.
Okay, so first of all, to Charlie's comments, if we keep the walnuts that we can keep, which are, we thought on Saturday that the ones we can keep are fortunately the ones closest to the street, which is sort of like 2 rows. If we keep those and they're not interrupted by the retaining walls, obviously that's a different, we won't take any trees out, 0 trees. The 2 big heritage oaks that are next to Malcolm's property, of course, we're leaving those. We're leaving all the trees now at this point, right? Now, except for the ones that, and again, we have to, maybe like 1 or 2 that intercept the retaining walls, but 2 or 3 of those are dead. So with respect to trees, we're not removing trees now anymore. Hydrology, it's interesting how we're talking about hydrology. This is massing, right? I mean, this is early in the process. The hydrology report, fortunately, we have one. Yes, it's based on the old design. We're not going to do a new hydrology report before you've weighed in on the massing. Come on, that's ridiculous. And Charlie, you're wrong on the front setback. It's 65 feet. It says right on the drawing, 65 feet to the property line, plus 11 or 12 feet to the street. So pretty good front yard setback, right? To Jennifer Jane, right?
Okay, excuse me. Please
Sorry.
only address us and members from the public. I
Um,
know it's hard, but please.
Beverly has a
Please don't
very
engage.
large and a
Wait, excuse me,
beautiful.
I'm still talking because I can't hear you if I'm talking. So please address us. Same comment to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. To her comments, she has a beautiful property and a huge house. I think somebody said it's 8,000 square feet. Why shouldn't we be able to do 6,000 square feet across the street? I mean, our requirements for engineering will be enormous. But that's why we need that square footage to justify the whole thing. As far as caring about the design, I care about the design. In fact, I encourage anybody in this room, we just completed a home, not in Lafayette, but ironically on the Lafayette-Orinda border, 42 Charles Hill Circle. It's very different because it's a downslope home. But if you just drive by that home and I'll take you inside if you want to see it. Lots of care, lots of money spent, lots of engineering, lots of materials, expensive materials. That's what it takes. And I'm willing to do that, but only under certain circumstances. As far as, Malcolm's comments, we haven't had a chance to meet. So even though I've tried, the story poles are accurate, and I'd be more than happy to go out there. They were based on an engineer, human company, telling us exactly the elevation, and we went from there to the height of the building. Yes, the garage is sunk in. As far as these power poles, I'd love to have the power poles out, but we will not be taking out the power poles. Thank you.
One sec. I have one question.
Yeah.
In the staff report and on the figures, it looks like trees are being removed, but you just said no trees will be removed. Can you just clarify?
The arborist recommended taking out all the walnuts because they were meeting their 50-year lifespan. We went with that, thinking they're kind of scraggly looking. So we said, okay, probably everybody agrees. But lo and behold, they don't. And I think it was Saturday that I realized, my God, we should keep them. We can trim them up. But half of them are dead. You can go and see. So those will be taken out. But if they're dead, they're taken out. And if they're in the way of the retaining walls, which again, maybe one or two. So I can't comment on that because I haven't really studied that in depth. But as a concept, we're leaving any tree, every tree.
So you're going to leave as many trees as possible.
We're going to leave
Sounds like
every oak tree. We're going to leave because there's only oaks and walnuts. We're going to leave every walnut tree with the exception of maybe it gets too close to one of those retaining walls.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment and we'll bring it to the commission. I would like to ask staff one question before we start. So what I just heard was regarding trees. And so what was just mentioned by the applicant is different than what's shown on some of the site plans. And we have a condition of approval that basically, I need to find it, it's condition of approval number 1, that more or less references that if we do approve this phase 1, that the plan set dated, I believe, April 11th or 10th. I need to go back and check. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, do you mind if I read that really quick? It says, development shall conform to the following approved plans on file at the city office as modified by these conditions, plans dated April 11th. So in that case, how does that relate to the trees, or is the tree permit completely different, independent of however the trees might be marked on this plan set related to what's being proposed for removal versus keeping? And the reason I'm mentioning it is there's a lot of public comment about the trees, and the staff report and the presentation tonight say two different things. Excuse me, the staff report and the applicant's presentation.
Correct. I think that the applicant's presentation has changed from the representations that were made to staff via the plans when the staff report was written. So I'm hearing as of Saturday, some reconsideration was given and some changes are being proposed relative to retention of trees. I would like to see clarity on that, and I think it behooves the applicants, the neighbors, everyone to have clarity on what trees he's referencing when he says, we're not removing any trees, but we are removing some are dead, some may be next to retaining walls and need to be removed. But the plans are the tool for representing what trees exist, and with a red X, as you've seen on the plans, those that will be removed. So they have numbers. If tonight that plan can go up on screen and he can identify the tree numbers that will now be retained, that can be easily incorporated into the conditions and we can move forward.
Okay, and if the applicant isn't able to do that live tonight, and it is something that the commission would like clarified in condition 1, since condition 1 does represent plan set that is different than the applicant's presentation tonight, what would we do? Would we potentially make a motion that then would include an update and revision, but our motion is only good on that assumption, or does it come back to us?
It could come back to you if you feel that needs to happen. You could charge staff with it. Ideally, we would get clarity from the commission, having a plan up on screen and Mr. Patmont saying, all of the trees that you see along Happy Valley Road, those will be retained. And if that's the direction of the commission, that's clear enough. We can make the amendment. And the condition you read out says as amended by these conditions. And so that can be incorporated at the council commission's direction. So if there are other trees, they just need to be identified and can be done. So I'm sure you're familiar enough with the plans to do that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Just please, both of you can clarify for me, and thank you for putting up this sheet on the screen, because I was looking at that earlier today. So are you saying that L1, I think that's what this is, L1.2 is not accurate? Right?
L1.2, oh, well, sorry, staff, go ahead.
Whom are you asking?
You. Or
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Yes, it's not accurate because when the staff report was published, it was published on Friday, and then they had a meeting on Saturday. And, one of the requests from the neighbor was to keep those trees, and that applicant is amendable to that. And so.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's why.
I thought he was talking in possibilities, I didn't know that he actually committed to doing it. So thank you.
So if we wanted to amend the condition, we can ask the applicant live to clarify which trees to update L1.2. Okay, thank you, staff. So we'll bring it commission. Oh, go ahead.
I have a couple for staff. So, and I disclosure, I asked this question to Greg earlier, but it might be worth repeating. If and when this goes to DRC, and then it will, in the current conditions, it's stated to come back to us. Would staff mind elaborating on what our options or what we can do when it comes back? In other words, if we aren't satisfied with hydrology reports or something, would we have any court recourse? That's kind of what I was getting at. And related to that was the applicant was mentioning, well, we shouldn't expect final hydrology reports at this point in the process. Is that correct? Or are the hydrology reports really produced right before the DRC meeting, or are they done after the VRC meeting approves a specific set of plans.
I would concur with the applicant at this stage. Hydrology it is not expected nor needs to be ironed out at a siting and massing level, which is the nature of tonight's hearing. I'll forego the background on why the process is structured this way, but basically the goal is to identify whereabouts on the site, and we have a plan, and kind of the serial box volume of the structure. And I think more information, more detail has been provided than is minimally necessary. And it's certainly helpful to know the visibility, some sections and offsite visibility. So I think that has sufficiently been provided, notwithstanding the artistic license taken with some of the renderings in terms of perspective, et cetera. But I think that it is sufficient. And so if the commission tonight approves the siting and massing as amended relative to trees or anything else, the follow-on steps would be to flesh out the design, landscape, and the details, including hydrology. Because I think what is lacking on the plans is what Mr. Patma spoke to, which is a detention or retention facility for stormwater to meter it out. So that needs to be figured out and incorporated into the plans. That should happen when it comes back to the Planning Commission, prior to it coming to the Planning Commission, because they go hand in hand. Like figuring that out and incorporating it into the design should go to the Design Review Commission, should come here. It would surprise me if the commission somehow was not satisfied and had additional things. There's still discretion at that time, but we would recommend it be limited to like addressing those issues of concern about the landscape or the hydrology, and not the overall question of, can this lot be developed, and with what kind of residence and whereabouts and how big. Like those are the threshold questions of this evening, and then it's just putting additional attention to and polish on the project moving forward, but fixing any critical details that have not been sufficiently addressed.
Commissioner Mason.
Well, this is where I kind of disagree, because one of the things that came up previous meeting, came up in this meeting, was whether the water could actually get there. The storm drain line was broken. Applicant insists that it can, it is functioning. The neighbors insist that it isn't. And that's not a minor detail. I mean, if it's functioning as the applicant says it is, then it shouldn't be a problem for us to add that as a condition of approval, that it is repaired and function, and not leave it to a phase 2. So, I mean, we've had two meetings and we still haven't got a consensus whether or not that line actually is connected or works, because we have different representations from people who live right there. And that's a concern of mine.
Understood. Thank you for that. And I think staff's view is that if a house is put roughly at that location and it becomes impervious, and the water that would fall on that footprint needs to be handled in a fashion, and same with any other impervious surface, that there is sufficient fall between where the house will go and the street level that it could be managed one direction or the other, or both. And whether so I'm not seeing that there's anything that would fundamentally change the siding and massing based on the ability or inability to handle it seems like it can be solved. And
It's like, for example, you mentioned retention pond, but with a slope that steep, I just don't see the ability to get a retention pond in there. So I mean, it's been consistently been one of the comments that the adjacent neighbors have. And I don't have, and it concerns me that it hasn't been addressed better, knowing that it is one of the foremost comments that the neighbors have. That's all I'm trying to say. I don't want to lock myself into something which is, hey, we can solve it, and it isn't really solved. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, I guess my thinking is that if they are unable from this point forward to solve it, then they don't have a approvable project.
Okay.
It seems like a engineering problem, which are vexing, but I've not seen a property that it can't be done on. It's just a matter of how kind of brutal is the manipulation and the techniques that need to be brought to bear on it. So it just gets more costly, like geotechnical issues in a way.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, if I may, I would like to address the concern. So I did send the neighbor's comment about the storm drain to our city engineer. And so our city engineer said that the storm drain crossed the street and discharges onto the downside property. It has been like that for well over 30 years and will continue to be like that. No changes are required as part of this development. That said, the development is required to make sure that the peak flow from the pipe does not increase from the current condition. And then also the city engineer did review the hydraulics and the hydrology and hydraulic study, and just said that it just needs to be updated to reflect the most current design, because the project will be going through different design iterations in terms of the size or anything else. And so it just needs to be updated prior to approval. So the commission will have an opportunity to see a new hydrology and hydraulic study that will be updated to reflect the most current project, and that would be peer reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
And that's required, that was added to as a condition.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're good with staff questions right now. Thank you. Anyone want to start with thoughts? So again, we're looking at massing and siding tonight for phase 1 application. Yes, not Commissioner, Greg.
A commenter in the audience is articulating that that's not true. So I don't know if you want to ask the question, open it back up. I'm not clear on it, but I wanted to bring that to your attention.
That what's not true.
I believe
Yeah, I mean, at
last
this
statement by
point,
staff.
I do feel like we've had multiple hearings on this item, and we have asked multiple times for public comments. People were able to provide public comments. So I know sometimes it's frustrating to hear things, or you might have a different opinion than some of the items that are shared, but I think we've closed public comment and we're already in our deliberation. Okay, and so I literally just said that. So please just keep your comments to yourself, because, and I know that's frustrating, but I will say that this isn't the only meeting on this project. And if there's something that you disagree with or that you would like to share with staff, you're welcome to share with staff after the meeting.
And what I will do is ask Mr. Glavin and Mr. Luttrup, the city engineer, to be in discussion and conversation as this project continues to move forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Okay, so commissioners.
I have one as well, outside of the hydrology, which,
Do you mind just into your mic?
outside of the hydrology, which will be addressed. I have two concerns. We've been consistently referred to a footprint of a given size, and this exceeds it. Also remember that the deck to the east is very large and it's solid round. So that to me would also be included in the footprint, which puts it out even more. The other thing is I was disappointed with the renderings. The last meeting, we talked about the concern standing on the street and looking up. And all the renderings were at the level of the house. There isn't anything that shows what it would look like looking up, because they're 4-foot walls, but they're only so far apart. So looking from the street, looking up, it would look like an 8-foot wall. I am sympathetic to the applicants, but to me, it's just been a little bit too much. And over the various times that it's been before the Planning Commission, both us and our predecessors, everybody's made it pretty clear about what size footprint we were looking for on that site. And I tend to agree with them and wouldn't change their earlier recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is generally not supportive of the massing.
Correct.
Okay. What about the siding?
Well, the siding and massing go together because it takes up the mass itself, the footprint itself takes up what it has to take up, because we're trying to do this essentially on one level. If they could get, square footage a different way, I would take a look at it, but all the previous ones referred to, footprint in the mid 4,000 square foot range, and this is drastically over that. And I know we've had mission creep before from phase 1 to phase 2, and this is already past what previous planning commissions have thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to go next?
Sure. I don't like to get on square feet because I think a few things. One, I think over time, houses have gotten bigger. I live in a 2,400 square foot house, just for the record, and that's good for me. But I don't want to tell other people what they should and shouldn't do within a range. And to that point, it was brought up earlier about a developer versus an owner. And while I totally agree with that sentiment, we can't make judgments based on who's doing it. We have to be agnostic to who's doing it. It's not fair to do that. So I just want that to be clear, because that's the reality of it. Now, it doesn't mean we can't, as people, make our own decisions at the end of the day, but we can't say, oh, that person lives here, that person's developing here. So I'm going to ignore that part. But I'm looking at one of the renderings, and I don't know whose house it is, but the house just below it, it looks quite massive. Now, it's probably different because it's lower, it's not impacting views. So when we just talk about square footage, I think it's a disingenuous factor to look at, because there are houses bigger than this on the pictures right in front of us. So then I think we have to look at, okay, how does it affect the views? How does it, go back to what we're actually charged to make findings of. And one thing we have to keep in mind is we have to let people have economic viability of their property. We can't just say you can't do it. So then it's like, what's the limit? And that's a very slippery slope. So I just want to get that out there because I tend to not want to tell people, like if we say 6,000, whatever is too much, what's okay? 6,000, 599? I mean, are we going to set an actual number? Because you can hide that just by how it's built into the hillside, which I actually think this has done a decent job. So then I'm rambling a little bit. I had kind of just circled all these things that I wanted to kind of hit. Analysis, zoning compliance, all the setbacks, those are based off zoning code and they comply on every one of them. Single family, maximum height, front, left, rear, aggregate, rear, parking. Check, they all work. Design guidelines. Here it starts getting a little more subjective. So I will admit that it's not as easy as just saying yes or no. But I do feel that the building it into the hillside, let me find, where is that? That lowers that issue. I also, Chair Radnich had a really nice photo. I'm assuming that's from your car, sitting in your car. So this is I hadn't seen the story poles, so I'm relying on this picture that's from a car right up against, and when I look up and now after the applicant explained that the two white lines are the retaining wall, you can kind of see there are two that setback. And could I put this up for everyone to see to you? I think it's, just so people know what I'm talking about, because this is, I don't know if it can just show up on your screen, this flat. Can it, maybe see if you can pinch the iPad a little so it shows the whole, there you go, backing up. But what I was going to say here is you can see it's a little harder to see on that, but you can see the lines of the front 4-foot retaining wall and then the second 4-foot retaining wall. And then it's really hard to see on this, but you can kind of see behind it the poles where the lights are that show what would be the roof line. And some of them you wouldn't see from this vantage point because the retaining walls would block it. But what I was happy to see is you could still see the top of the mountain or the hill or whatever you want to call that. Now I'm relying on the fact that these story poles are to what the design says. And I think the applicant said they were, so I'm gonna believe them on that. So, well, how about this? Let me just pause, but this is kind of where I am. So I have a really hard time telling someone they can't. All the other issues with hydrology and stuff, I do think those will get picked up. So I'm not concerned that we're going to pass the buck if we don't deal with it now. I'll pause. That's probably most of it.
Okay. Commissioner Giorgio?
Thank you. A lot of your thoughts are similar to mine. I do appreciate the elevation drawings in the staff report. I think that in a lot of ways gives a good representation of how the building is designed to, in terms of siting and massing, to fit in. I'm not so concerned with the distance to neighbors. The renderings I still am not happy with. I did mention to staff that the one in the staff report, the figure 13.3D, the 13.3D view was closest to what I wanted to see. I really wanted to see a drawing that showed when you're at the street level or across the street at the neighbor's house, you're looking up similar to what was just shown on that image. That's what I was really hoping for. But when I look at the elevations, I feel like it's done well and it's set in to the natural area to the best that it can be. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, I'm frustrated by some of the detail or lack of detail in response to some of the things like, yeah, the renderings for the actual depiction of what it looks like. And of course, the landscape's beautiful and that may or may not be there. It might take a while. But in terms of massing and siding, I do have to agree with Commissioner Labange. I know previous applications and previous planning commissions, I think only 2 of us were there in the 2018 decision of denial, but that was for a previous application. And the planning commission has changed over time, 2015, 2018, today, right? Our members have changed. The market has changed. I don't appreciate the comment that, oh, I have to build this square foot to earn enough money. However, that is also, everything's built on cost, right? Like that is a reality. But so I'm viewing this as a new application. So while I respect the previous comments, and as a commissioner that was on a previous decision, right? Commissioner Mason and myself, for denial of that application. This is a different application. Do I think 6,000 square feet is a lot? Yeah. Personally, my home isn't close to a fraction of that, but in looking in the surrounding area and in looking, driving up to this lot, it doesn't seem out of place to me. I was glad to hear the applicant was willing to leave trees and that came out of a community meeting. We don't always have projects where the applicants meet with the neighbors. I do appreciate that. If we make a motion tonight, I would like to see the updated landscape plan. I think it was L 2.1. 1.2, L 1.2. I would like to see that updated live so that we can incorporate that tonight into our motion so that the applicant does need to commit to it rather than hoping it works out. Hydrology, geotech, huge issues. I'm confident that between regulations, standards, city engineers, departments, agencies, that they're going to have to make it work or the project isn't going to get approved. Personally, that's my take on that. So in terms of what we're charged for tonight, massing and siding, phase 1 development, I would be ready to make a decision on it. Let me ask the commission, and I know Commissioner Mason, I'm mostly looking at you, but it's the angle. How do the other commissioners feel about updating figure L1.2 live? That's the tree figure as part of tonight's meeting.
I would rather have it done right than rushed. Because in updating it live, they don't necessarily have the latest. First of all, my family had lots of walnut trees. I know the history. The 50-year life is correct. I can go into a whole lot of more detail than most people ever want to listen to why. And they look pretty bad at the end. So I wouldn't want to commit them to saving something which just isn't savable. I'd rather them come back and leave it to staff's discretion to have it done and included in the plans rather than start a whole nother argument months down the road when something was committed to be saved when it wasn't. You know, if the retaining walls are on piers, that shouldn't affect the root system for most trees adjacent to it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I can understand your comment. What are other commissioners' thoughts? Need your microphone.
But if we could say what we want and then ask this, because we've had it before where staff would review and see if it's deemed appropriate to what we requested, like I would say something like, they're not dead. Dead ones don't need to be saved, and they're not being impacted by the retaining wall. But if they submitted something back to, I hate to see having to come all the way back to planning commission just to do this one thing. So I'd rather say, here's what we'd like, and then let staff use their discretion to say they meant it or they didn't.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask staff that. So along those lines, hearing Commissioner Mason's comment, would we be able to make a motion tonight and rely with kind of like a tweak to condition of approval 1, specifying what we would ideally like to see in the updated plan, and then leave it to staff to verify the information? Could we make a motion kind of that vague regarding condition of approval 1? Or would it be better to have the applicant bring that figure back to planning commission before it goes to design review? Or would it come when it comes back to us after design review? I'm hesitant because condition of approval 1 is linked specifically to the April 11th plan set.
Which is clear. And so the desire, I think, goes to simple clarity. And my suggestion earlier of having the plan up and Mr. Padamont just identifying the trees that he has now had a change of heart about their retention. My understanding from his wording is it's all the trees along Happy Valley Road. Now, while that representation and it can be memorialized in the conditions that the applicant is committing to retaining those, there will be qualifiers, and it is not that is not immutable in the future if between now, when a tree is still living, and in the future, when it comes back, it dies, or some other aspect of like, we also need to deal with stormwater, and the only way to deal with it is to put a pipe through this location and there's a tree there. So there has to be some pragmatism and ability to deal with a multitude of circumstances. So I think we can take the direction based on his representation this evening, that the intention and what the commission is approving is the retention of the trees along Happy Valley Road. And I'm looking for it was really just looking for a nod, because I think that's what you said.
But not these, because these may get into.
Okay.
All those.
I'm going to put it up on screen. If you can. Yeah.
While they're pointing it up.
Thank you for entertaining the. Okay. What you're seeing is sheet L 1.2, and they're having a discussion, but what Mr. Padamont said is all the trees along Happy Valley Road, they'll now shoot to retain, but those which are up in here, 354, 355, 352, and 356, those may not be retainable because of the driveway coming in there. But beyond that, 153 eastward, his intentions are to retain those.
And so to clarify, the applicant would be able to get a tree removal permit to remove a tree that's not on his parcel because the driveway is going through the other parcel where the tree is needing to be removed?
That property owner would need to be a willing, cooperative signatory to the tree permit, or Mr. Patmau would have a dominant easement that would allow
Allow
him
that.
to do that.
Okay.
So because the properties were jointly owned, they were joint and jointly presented together, and they involved one access, they really need to be entitled together in order to be able to build the project. So unless there is a dominant easement that enables the eastern property to do the work on the western property, they need to be in cooperation, the two property owners. But the commission can entitle the eastern property and the work with demonstration of this easement on the west, or the western property owner can be an authority in saying, yes, I consent to this.
Okay, and what about tree 346? I'm not clear, is that intended, it's the top right X? Is that part of what's being preserved based on tonight's conversation as well? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So then Commissioner Mason, because I know you, and I do understand like your point of like not rushing it, but also making sure that these trees are viable and healthy. So knowing of what we just heard, of which ones they're planning to keep as long as they're safe, healthy trees, are you comfortable with this?
I'm comfortable with that, but the whole gist of my conversation is, are they healthy enough to save? I mean, I look at walnut trees, they're kind of like the joke about the trees at Joshua Tree. It's not that they live long, it's just that they take so long to die. You know, they can look bad and look bad for a very, very long time. And hey, if you're just keeping it to fulfill a promise, but it's mostly branches with a couple leaves way up at the top, why bother? So I just didn't want to go through all this exercise to find out, well, you know, tree 350X, that's a big tree. You know, 349 and 348 aren't looking that healthy. We're going to cut them down. And then we go through this whole thing. Well, you said you're going to save them. That's why I said I would just as soon have an arborist look at them and make a final determination. You know, the trees up on, you know, by the driveway and the Hammerhead, they're gone no matter what. I have no trouble with those.
And Steph, there is an arborist report, right, already? So it should, so to Commissioner Mason's point, if staff is able to cross correlate, work with the applicant as they submit their actual applications or, you know, entitlements down the road, the intent would be preserve as many trees as possible as they indicated tonight, but per the findings of the arborist report of what's a healthy tree, what's a unhealthy tree.
Staff agrees with Commissioner Mason. There is a pragmatism to taking out all the trees that are essentially nearing the end of life and replanting new. It is a dramatic visual change. And so it is often the case that we support retention of even trees that are in decline, so long as that the work is done, succession planting is put in the ground, given a chance to establish itself and start to grow. And then with the understanding everything is going to die, and those walnut trees have been in decline and will come out at some point, I assure you. But if we have had the work done, the succession planting is in, and it's not as dramatic a clear cutting, if you will.
Okay.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
So the landscaping plan hasn't really been developed. It's preliminary, is my understanding, right? Is there any history to ever tying the tree plan to the to the landscaping plan in the terms of your point of succession planning? If they're taking out, would that be a mechanism we could use to address this issue?
Yes, I think the representation of the retention of the trees as discussed in the last 10 minutes or so, and there's an initial landscape plan which is I'll say busy graphically on the plan set. A simplicity and an acknowledgement and incorporation of succession planting of scale should be part of the phase 2 application.
Thoughts?
I've just been reviewing what conditions we have to, findings we have to make, and I'm in the same position, so I'm ready to take this to a vote if everyone else is.
Yeah, I just finally want to mention, my main concern has been, the hydrology, the water issues that could pose a problem. And as long as there's going to be an upgraded hydrology plan and everything's addressed correctly in phase 2, I'm good with the staff report.
And let me ask staff. So I know earlier we closed public comment. There was conversation in the audience referencing a false statement. If that statement, would it be possible, I assume that statement was regarding hydrology because that's the point of the conversation. Knowing that that is a hot topic, would it be possible to just hear that one comment briefly, or would we have to reopen public comment? Previously, and the reason I'm saying is previously I was very firm on the public comment opportunity had passed, but knowing that that is such a community concern, I feel it would round out our decision making.
And if that's the chair's, you have the prerogative to do that. I think that and I'm all for hearing comments out. I think there is ample opportunity for that between the property owners, the neighbors, and the city engineer. And even if this project were ministerial and approved over the counter, they would still have to address the hydrology, grading and drainage issues, even without,
If I open it again, do I open it for everybody online, everybody in the room, and then we bring it back to deliberation again?
yes.
Won't this be
Okay.
addressed though in phase 2?
Yeah, so that's what I was just gonna say. I do know it's important, and I do know it's an important issue, and I do agree, phase 2. So hearing that and hearing that there are going to be ample opportunity, I'm fine waiting. Go ahead.
One question for staff, because we're only approving the east side, I would assume the hydrology also has to follow the west side, because if they just dumped all the east side on the west side property and said, well, that's not before the council, that's not our jurisdiction, that's not our problem, wouldn't that make the situation worse and tie everybody's hands?
Go ahead.
The hydrology reports covers both the east and west lot.
Well,
And then when the applicant submits, when the design reiterations are made during phase 2 and prior to going back to planning commission, it would be updated to reflect all of the grading work that's being proposed across both parcels.
But
So I think your point is that not only the access needs to be coordinated between the two properties, the grades, the retaining walls, But also the drainage needs to be coordinated between the two properties to ensure that it is not just creating a kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, because the concern is.
Which was my point exactly earlier of they need to be developed or entitled in coordination, or it needs to be a standalone solution that doesn't hobble or unduly restrict the western parcel. So I think we're clear on that.
Yeah, because the concern is, since we don't have a house for the western portion, so essentially by burying it into the hill, we essentially create a dam. Water comes down, hits the retaining wall behind the garage and all the drainage, and is directed either way. And so half the water goes, or mostly will go, a lot will go to the western side, but there's no structure there to determine what's going to happen when that house comes up and it's benched into the hill and all the water is redirected, because we're just assuming it is, and we're just like we're assuming that that house may come together, but we may just entitle for a driveway and that's it. Did I make that clear? Okay.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
Had it. Shoot.
Page 16 of 32.
Yeah, I know. All right.
I propose that we adopt PC Resolution 2026-04, approving the project subject to conditions, including whatever we discussed on the trees.
Is that clear enough for staff?
That the planning director got.
Yeah. Subject to conditions of approval.
Yes, I said that. I think subject to conditions of approval. Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
So 3 ayes, 1 nay.
The motion carries with a majority of the commissioners present.
And I would ask staff to let me know when it goes to DRC. So, thank you.
We can try to
Yeah, if you can.
make that happen. There is a 14-day appeal period,
Thank you. 14-day appeal.
so it could be appealed up to the city council.
Okay, moving next on our agenda, other business, 9A ARC volunteer virtual meeting Friday, May 1st at 9:30.
I'm happy to do it again if no one else can.
Yeah, I can do it.
I really am tough on those. I know the last one they said emails. I didn't read that till too late though. So.
Yeah, but I can do it, Carl.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll be your backup.
Perfect. So
Carl.
can slate me for that. Item 9B, vice chair election. So Commissioner Deming, Vice Chair Deming has left our commission. With that, we have a vacancy for the vice chair. I will take.
I
nominations.
would like to nominate Commissioner DeGiorgio for vice chair.
I accept
I
that.
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to help out.
Perfect. I think you'll be an excellent vice chair.
Yep.
10 commissioners reports. How about planning director's report?
The chair participated in interviews for potential planning commissioner candidates to serve on the commission today with the liaisons from the city council to the planning commission. And so that item will be on the next city council agenda for the potential appointment of up to 2 commissioners.
Are we trying to get back to 7? Or is that still a goal, or? I'm just curious.
discussions have occurred, but no, with the mayor and the city manager as to, what we're contending with. Thankfully, we've only missed one meeting due to quorum issues, and it's not the first time that the commission has had multiple vacancies. And so a multitude of potential options have been floated, including reducing the number statutorily down to 5, combining the Design Review Commission and Planning Commission. None or no plans are afoot other than to appoint and get the commission back to its full force of 7.
Great.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.